Their work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
Mr. Scout. I know you're still weighing whether to return to Lumen. But the mark I've come to know is happy.
Hello, is anyone there? Is the board on? It's Marquez from Macro...
What you all did was one of the most painful moments in the history of this company.
What the hell?
But the four of you have become known as the face of Severance reform.
Okay, so we're not in trouble?
I don't think so. Milchick said we're famous.
All of us equally, or one of us is like the star?
Now if you feel that you can't go on.
So what the hell did you guys see up there?
It's not our world up there.
And your life is filled with much confusion.
My Audi's wife died a few years ago. Except the woman is Miss Casey.
So what are you gonna do?
I gotta get her out of here.
Mark, your Annie said she's alive.
This is obscene.
I just want to be sure.
And your world around is coming down.
Why did you do this? What is this all about?
Do you know something about Gemma?
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
Their work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
You don't value them. You fear them. We fear no one.
I'm tightening the leash.
If we let this happen to Miss Casey, who's gonna step up when it happens to us?
Now. Goodbye, Marquez.
Wait!
My name is Miss Huang. It's my first day here as deputy manager. Mark W.
Why are you a child?
Because of when I was born.
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you. She's still alive. They give us half a life and think we won't fight for it.
Season finale this Friday or Thursday for us that are Apple Plus subscribers that get in early. We are less than 24 hours away now for the final episode of Severance Season 2. And from what I hear, this episode is going to be a game changer. Some of the early reviews are coming in, and while they can't put any spoilers in them, they can give a general overall feel. And from what I'm reading, this finale is going to be a quote-unquote game changer that brings everything full circle. So that sounds like we're going to get some pretty big answers. It sounds like the Cold Harbor storyline might get wrapped up right in this finale. And looks like we got some big things on the horizon, some very big things. And from the short little episode 10 preview that we just saw there, the goats are indeed returning. The goats are going to be in the finale. Maybe we will finally find out what's going on with these friggin' goats.
Right? So I see that the Sevies are already fearing for the baby goats. And that was such a cute little clip, too. They're just wheeling this baby goat around. I'm afraid that the rating... I have a theory already, right?
Ooh.
I'm afraid that rating is because they're going to hurt the goats.
I hope
So of
not.
course it has to be like a violent rating. I know. I'm sorry, Jeremy. You have to come to terms with it. Nothing good is happening to the goats.
I know. I know. I think you're right. I do think you're right. I think nothing good is going to come of these goats. Whatever they're using these goats for, I definitely get the feeling it's not going to be in the goats' best interest. And I think we get a good indication of that in season 1 too. Like when Mark and Helly first stumble upon the goat people for the first time, and it's just that one goat person, feeding the baby goat in the small room. The look of fear, the look of dread on his face when he thought that Mark and Helly were here to take the goat, and he says, no, it's too soon, she's not ready yet. You get that sense that he definitely knows what's going to happen to this goat when he hands it off, and he does not want to do it. So that kind of filled me with dread right from the beginning. So I think you're right. I do think you're right that these goats are going to be in for a rough time. I hope not, but man, it could be a goat slaughter for all we know. And yeah, like you said, maybe that could be the reason for the TVMA violence rating that we're going to be getting in this finale episode. It's very possible. I hope we don't see any goat violence. If there is goat violence, I hope it's off camera at the very least. But no, it's a possibility. It is a possibility. Crazy. Absolutely crazy stuff, guys. And I can't believe it. We are just, again, less than 24 hours away from the season 2 finale of Severance, which is going to be a whopping 76 minutes in runtime. One of the longest episodes of Severance to date ever, which is great to see, because I know there were some people, and myself included, who were a little bit bummed out, not like super bummed or anything, but it was definitely noticeable that episodes 8 and 9 were pretty short compared to your average Severance episode. Episode 8 in particular being only 37 minutes in runtime, probably the shortest episode of Severance they've ever filmed. So it's nice to get back into this finale knowing it's going to be a good hour and 15 minutes long of pure screen time. And I can't wait. I mean, again, judging from these early reviews, it looks like this finale is going to be wild finale.
And they've done this before, right? And I feel like we know, right? They tried to prepare us, but we're just never prepared.
Yeah.
They did that with the Orville. Remember, they said this episode is going to change everything.
Yes.
And so we thought, okay, it's going to change everything. And then it did. It totally went dark. I feel like from Orville all the way on, it was like all of these topics that were super dark. So they've done it before. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you what it might be. I just know it's going to be violent. We're all bracing ourselves.
We are bracing ourselves. We're bracing ourselves for impact. That is the feeling. I feel like we're in a car headed for a cliff, and we're bracing ourselves for the inevitable end. It feels interesting. I mean, because Severance doesn't usually go into this territory in terms of like having violence in their shows. Like I can't remember any like physical violence that we're going to get in this finale. At the very least, we know we're going to get some degree of physical violence based on that little episode 10 preview that we did see. And for anyone who hasn't seen that, I did an episode 10 preview breakdown. It's up on the channel, our most recent video that we uploaded. And you can see this little clip of Drummond slamming Mark up against one of the walls in the severed hall rather violently. So there is going to be some kind of physical altercation happening in this episode, whether that is attributing to the violence rating or whether it's something else still remains to be seen. But I get the feeling it's going to be more than just a little push that's going to, garner that kind of feeling. I think it's going to have to be a little more than just that scene. But yeah, I guess we shall find out. But welcome, everybody. So glad to have everyone here tonight on this special Severance week. We planned on doing a whole week of Severance content. This is the last week of Severance, of course. We have a whole week planned of awesome Severance streams we're going to be doing every night, starting tonight with Tinfoil Wednesday, where we dive into everybody's craziest tinfoily theories, or any kind of theories, really, any Severance theory at all. We got so many good ones that were submitted in the comment section to our episode 10 preview breakdown video, and we have all of those loaded up. We're going to take a look at every single one, and of course, we're going to take a look at the ones that you guys say in the chat afterwards as well, because we always want to hear everybody's theories. So whether you had a chance to throw them in or not, we will definitely get to ones in the live chat as well. And this should be fun. This should be fun. This was a very great idea for a stream from you, PM. This was an awesome idea to just dive it, because Severance is one of those shows where there's no shortage of theories. There's so many big, and even small fan theories out there. Some that are incredibly intriguing and seems like they could be very accurate, and some of them that are a little more tinfoily. So tonight, it's going to be fun to kind of dive into some of these, look at some of these awesome theories that I'm sure some of them will recognize, some of them maybe we'll be seeing for the first time, and just see what we can see, and then finally see what the episode is really going to be like tomorrow when we actually get the finale. So we got the tinfoil now, and we get the finale tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and really, it's the Sevis, right? The chat knows all, the Sevis know all. The idea came from you guys. You guys were commenting in the last stream that we did that the fun that you have is making up theories, right? And seeing if they come true or disproving the theories. So from there came the idea of Tinfoil Wednesday. And let's have fun. The crazier,
Yeah.
the better, guys. You don't have to have evidence. You don't have to be grounded in reality. Not today.
Exactly. That is perfectly well said. Have fun with this. This is definitely one of those streams where any kind of severance theory, no matter how wild, no matter how much evidence backs it up or not, have fun with it. These streams are meant to be fun. And tonight, yeah, we're gonna throw on that tinfoil hat. We're gonna dive into that rabbit hole, and we will see where the night takes us. We shall see. And speaking of, saying hello to the refiners, hello to each and every one of the awesome refiners, the Sevies in the awesome chat this evening. Welcome one, welcome all. Let's see who we got in here. We got Jen, the teacher. Welcome, Jen. We got Lacey in the house. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got Panda Nikki in the house as well. We got Pam Jam. Severance Day, Thursday is upon us. It is. Well, this is Severance Week, actually. We're doing a whole Severance Week, and it has officially started right now with Tinfoil Wednesday. So welcome to Severance Week, everybody. It's going to be a fun one. We got a very fun week planned for the last episode of Severance. It's going to be lots and lots of interesting content that I hopefully people will like. We got Clem in the house. What is up, Clem? Clam Cumber. Welcome, welcome. Love the I love the ingenuity behind some of these names. It's absolutely epic. Love some of these names. We got Casey in the house. Welcome, Casey. Good to see you. We got Joan in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got the real Code Knox. Welcome, welcome, the real Code Knox. Good to see you as well, my friend. I hope you are doing well this evening. We got David S. Pumpkin in the building. Welcome, welcome. We got Peach in the house. Welcome, Peach. We got S. Drag Nasty, another one of those great names that I absolutely love. Welcome, S. Drag Nasty. Love that one. We got Golden Child, our good pal Golden Child. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you as well. I hope you are doing well. We got Sedna in the house. Ricken is the mastermind behind it all, using the goats as sleeper agents, ready at moment's notice to spring into action. Now, this is the kind of tinfoil we love to see. No matter how crazy it is, no matter how unlikely it is, this is the kind of tinfoil that's kind of fun to dive into every once in a while. Not going to lie, I kind of like this, even though it's probably not the case. We love especially PM and I, because we have been pretty big fans of Ricken. He's been one of those very interesting characters, you know. And I got to say, I'm a little bit bummed. We didn't really get a whole lot of Ricken screen time in season 2. He's been kind of sidelined for most of season 2. We saw him very, very sparingly, which is a little disappointing. So I'm hoping he at least has a good amount, at least a good scene or two in this finale. Like if we don't see a little bit more of Ricken before the season ends, I'm going to be very disappointed. But yes, the Ricken theories are always incredibly fun because the theories surrounding Ricken usually tend to be the ones that are a little more crazy, a little more tinfoily. Ricken's really Kier. He's been Kier this whole time. Like Ricken's the big mastermind. And those are always fun to kind of dive into, especially for people like PM and I who are members of the Ricken cult.
And don't discount anything. That's why I'm saying this is Wednesday. Throw all of your theories out there because the craziest thing could be true. You never know. What if Ricken is the mastermind? Anything is possible, really. It is.
Anything is possible with a show like this. And much like last night when we were talking with Doug about how From's one of those channels that doesn't have source material. There isn't a book or a movie that you can go read and watch and get all the answers and know what's coming. Severance is very similar to that, where it's original story. It's not based on anything else. So the entire fandom is always on evil playing field. Nobody can go get the source material and get all the answers and read the blueprint and know, oh, this is where Severance is going. So none of us know where it's going. And that's what makes shows like this a little bit more fun. So yeah, I mean, these are the nights to kind of dive in, no matter how crazy or how unlikely the theory is. As PM says, you never know. It could end up being true on a show like this. If anything, Severance has proven never to be too sure on what you're going to expect, because you never know what the show's going to do. I like that. It's a good feeling. That is a good feeling. We got Be a Dragon in the house. Welcome, Be a Dragon. Good to see you. We got Assimilating Knowledge. What is up, Assimilating? Good to see you as well. We got Ty Briggs in the house. What is up, Ty Briggs? Good to see you, my friend. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I love how she says Mark. Yeah, Mark. There will be no honeymoon ending for you. Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. I love the way that Cobel talks. The way that Cobel talks and the way that Irving speaks. I just love their voice.
Yeah, I'm gonna start going around talking like that, just like extending my words.
Yeah.
But I do recall that a lot of people were praising you for your new impression, right? I love your impressions. I think like they're spot on. The James Egan impression from your video.
The good old James Egan, yeah. A monumentous day. Just the guy, every time you see the guy on screen, he just gets creepier and creepier and creepier. James Egan is one of those characters that does give me the willies. But yeah, hearing him say that to Helena in the other episode, a momentous day. It's just like, how can anyone talk like that? Like he sounds like he's on a ventilator, for crying out loud. Oh man. Gotta love it. Well, thank you for that. I very much appreciate that. Very much appreciate anybody who likes the impressions. I never know if they're going to be good or not, to be honest. We got Susan in the house. Welcome, Susan. Good to see you. Good evening. The tension waiting for tomorrow is unbearable. I'm so glad you're here. Well, thank you. That is so awesome of you to say. And yeah, we're going to be here all week, right up to the finale and after the finale, discussing it very, very much in depth. Again, we have a whole week of Severance content that we're planning, starting tonight with Tinfoil Wednesday. And of course, tomorrow will be our usual pre-game show before the episode drops. And then our live after show right after the episode airs. And then Friday, we also have another interesting Severance theme stream planned for Friday. And of course, we'll be doing our usual Saturday show as well, diving deep, deep, deep into the finale as well. So we got a lot of Severance content. Again, it's not Severance Day this week. It is Severance Week right now, and we are starting it. We are starting it. We got Playing Pants Games. What is up? Brienne of Goat will save the goats. I hope so. And that's another thing. Because I know you're a big fan of Gwendoline Christie, like I am as well. She was great in Thrones. She's great in everything she's in. She was great in great as Lucifer. I was really hoping that they were going to have her in more than one episode, and it wasn't just going to be that one cameo scene. Now, maybe, and now that the goats are returning for this finale, I'm hoping we'll get a little glimpse of seeing Gwendoline again, because we don't even know the name of her character, I believe. They don't say the name of her character once in that episode. It's just the leader of the goat ladies. Like, even when they're doing the inside the episode, and you hear Ben Stiller and Dan Erickson talking about that episode, they call her Gwendoline, or they say the leader of the goat people. So we never even know what her name is on the show. So I hope with the goats returning in this final episode, which we know they are after that little snippet that Apple TV has dropped of the goat in the cart going down the Severance hallway, we know the goats are going to be returning. So what do you think? Think there's a chance we might see Gwendoline Christie again, leader of the goat people?
The goat people manager, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like they don't have like, structure, but they do have managers.
Yeah.
I hope so. I mean, we do see that little goat being wheeled around. Maybe it's her. Maybe she's the one that's wheeling all the goats around. One at a time, though. I noticed instead of they have a lot of goats. It wasn't like 3 or 4. It's just one at a time being wheeled around in that little cart. So that seems interesting. Why not take all of them, right? I really do hope that we see her because, yes, I love her. I love her as Lucifer. I'm in love with her. Just everything she does.
She's good. She really is great in everything she's in. It was super awesome to see her in the trailer for season 2, like way before season 2 started. Just when they dropped the trailer, you see her standing up and ringing that bell to Kingdom Come, and I was like, okay, she's going to be in season 2. That is awesome, and that's one thing that Severance has always done. They've always had a really good cast. They always went out and got really, really good actors and actresses, like your John Turturros, like your Christopher Walkens, like Gwendoline Christie. They really tend to land some really good names, and it's no surprise considering how good the show is. But yeah, I'm hoping with the goats returning that we may hopefully see a little bit of Gwendoline Christie once again. We got a couple of super chats here. Thank you guys so much. We got All Mod Cans. Thank you so much for $5. Very much appreciate that. Episode 1 and 2, when Mark is sent home early, the elevator sequence is different. Close up of his eyes and fade to black for Innie and Outie. Mean anything? Ooh, interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that a little bit closely then, because I know in the beginning the elevator kind of ding is what tipped a lot of people off that Helly wasn't really Helly, that it might actually have been Helena, that she didn't switch over, because we see all of the other Outies get into the elevator, and as soon as the door closes and it starts going up, you hear this ding. You hear it for Mark, you hear it for Irving, you hear it for Dylan, but you don't hear it for Helly. And that's what led a lot of people right at the very beginning of the season to think that Helly wasn't Helly, that this was actually Helena in disguise. And so many of you turned out to be right the whole time. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch those 2 episodes a little bit closer, actually, because I didn't notice it on my first glance. But no, it's a very nice catch on your part. But yeah, these elevator dings, apparently even something as small as an elevator ding can be an indication of something bigger coming.
I really like that you notice the close-up of his eyes fading into black, because that was a big part of the sequence of them changing, right? We would zoom into their face. In season 1, we would just kind of see their eyes sort of like change. Season 2, it was more violent. They would like shake, right? His eyes fading to black. I wonder if it's maybe letting us know that there is already something wrong with Mark, that there was something malfunctioning at that point. But that's a great observation.
Yeah, that is a good, and that's what's great about this show, and that's what's great about these chats as well, because I mean, you guys will pick stuff out that even PM and I miss sometimes, and we're usually very attentive to the show, but even we miss stuff sometimes. It happens. But no, that's a very interesting catch. I'm gonna have to go back and watch those first 2 episodes and pay very close attention to the switch and see if it could be an indication of anything, especially after the finale airs. And when you go back and rewatch season 2, you always tend to pick up things that you just didn't pick up the first go around because you didn't have context for them. You didn't know to look for them. So that's always what's fun after a season ends, going back and doing a nice full complete rewatch. Always is fun because you always pick up on some really, really cool things. And who knows, maybe that'll be something that could have been an indication of something bigger, maybe. Because like you mentioned, it was very subtle in season 1, the switch from Outie to Innie when they were in the elevator. They would kind of it almost seemed like it was a gentle switch, but right from the very beginning of season 2, as soon as Mark transitions over, it does look a little bit more intense, a little bit more violent, even to the point where they specifically had the actor, Adam Scott, start rolling his eyes in the back of his head, because he's one of those people that can kind of roll over the whites of his eyes. So they had him do that. So when he's if you'll notice, that's a difference between his transitions from season 1 to season 2. In season 1, he didn't do that, but in season 2, they have him kind of rolling back the whites of his eyes as he's transferring from one to the other, just because they wanted to give it a little bit more of a jarring look, and especially considering everything that Innie Mark had just been doing. Like in Innie Mark's mind, the last thing he was doing was running up to Devin saying she's alive. So he was probably still in such a hyper state that might have affected the transition too, that he's turning back into Innie Mark and he's still thinking he's running towards Devin, trying to warn her that Gemma's still alive. That's the last thing he remembers at that point. So yeah, I love the difference, the subtle difference in the change from Outie to Innie in season 2. It definitely was an evolution of the change in and of itself. And it kind of represents where season 2 went as a whole, where season 1's change was kind of subtle, a little bit more gentle. And we hear Dan Erickson talk about season 1 being the Innie's childhood. And then you hear them talking about season 2 being them kind of growing into adolescence, which is a little more intense, a little more violent, a little more kind of lively. So the change kind of represents the tone that both seasons go on to kind of be.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the rolling of the eyes, that makes me think, how do you even find that out? Like you do it a day and you're like,
somebody else must tell you. Yeah, it's got to be somebody watching you. Yeah, right. I've tried to do it a few times. I've tried to do it a few times. I can't. Some people can just really roll like the Undertaker. Anybody who's a big wrestling fan in the 90s during the Attitude Era. The Undertaker was super known for this. He would roll over the whites of his eyes. His whole eye would just be straight up white, and it just made him look even scarier. It fit his character perfectly. But yeah, I know some people just can do it. Some people can't. I've never been able to. I've tried, but I am not a roll over whites kind of guy, unfortunately. It's a skill I have not acquired. But thank you again, all mod cons. Very much appreciate you. We got Panda Nikki for $13.99. Thank you so much, Panda Nikki. Very much appreciate you. Just wanted to say congrats again on your interview with the Man in Yellow. Thanks for providing a place for this amazing community to grow, and it has it has. Fromly, Daddy Jeremy PM. Well, thank you so much for that. The interview was really fun. It was never something I ever planned to do on the channel. Like I had gotten a lot of requests to do interviews over the times that I've covered some of these shows, and it's just never really been my thing. But when the Man in Yellow himself asks you to come onto his channel and says, "Hey, ask me yourself, Jeremy," how can I pass that up? I mean, it's the Man in Yellow himself. How could I ever say no to that? So this time I made an exception this time to do this interview with Doug, and I'm so glad I did, because it was so fun. It was great to see some of the awesome Frumley names back into the chat last night, who I haven't seen in a little while. So awesome. Great to see each and every one of you. And yeah, it was just fun. It was fun to talk From again. It's been a little while since we've talked From. We've been deep into Severance mode, which rightfully so. You know, we're covering it right now on the channel, so it's only natural. But it was fun. It was fun to talk a little bit of From again, and to learn a little bit from one of the people who's actually been behind the camera, who has been a part of making this phenomenal show that we have all been so invested in for the last 3 years. And to see someone like him coming into the show as a newcomer on a well-established show, having a scene like that, knowing or not knowing whether or not he would, really realize the impact that scene was going to have on the fandom, considering how big it was. Yeah, it was really fun to talk some From. And when Severance is over, we'll definitely continue the Severance content. As long as people want to talk Severance, we'll be here talking Severance. But maybe we'll throw in some From streams here and there. Maybe we'll start doing some more From stuff after Severance is over, if that's something people want, of course. But thank you. Thank you so much, Panda Nikki. Very much appreciate you. Very much appreciate it. Very much appreciate it. All right, let's get back into this. Now, tonight, guys, of course, this is Severance Wednesday, Severance Tinfoil Wednesday. And tonight we are going to be taking a look at all of the craziest, wildest, and coolest Severance theories that are out there that we can find. You guys made some really great suggestions that I'm going to pull up right here in a minute from the comment section of our latest video. And again, big thank you to everybody who submitted their theories. And after we're done reading all of these, we'll definitely get to some of you guys in the chat as well. We want to see what you guys are thinking, of course. What kind of theories are you guys into? What are your favorite Severance theories? What are your least favorite Severance theories? I know I have my favorites and I have my least favorites as well, as does everybody, I'm sure. But this is going to be fun. This is going to be a blast. I love throwing on the tinfoil hat every once in a while, diving into these rabbit holes, as it were, and just seeing where it takes us. So let's pull these up, shall we? Let's pull these up. Love it, love it, love it. All right, here we go. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Rebecca is definitely a goat, in my opinion. Maybe.
I love Rebecca. I love Rebecca, and my favorite one of her line is, well, a couple of them, right? She has an issue with the baby, and she lets it be known. She's like, the baby shouldn't be introduced before the book reading. It's just going to distract everybody. And then when she's leaving the party, she tells Ricken, please don't punish the baby. It wasn't its fault. It's like, who would even punish the baby? Of course, it wasn't its fault that it went missing. Rebecca's the best.
That's right. I did totally forget about that. Yeah, don't punish the baby. It's not his fault. And it's like, wait a minute. What kind of person would ever punish this poor baby for this? Like, I think, what kind of nut would ever blame this baby for it being taken? It's just, it shows you the kind of mindset of some of Ricken's friends and some of the Ricken cult that is kind of joined up around him. And that was another thing we noticed, when the friend that first finds the baby, Mark kind of finds the baby first. And then you see the friend kind of walk into the room right behind him and kind of push Mark to the side, grab the baby. Look, I found her. I saved her. Like, wanted credit so bad for being the one who found the actual baby. He's got some weird characters around him. He's got some very weird characters around him. And that's one thing I've always found fascinating, I guess, about the the Ricken group, the Ricken cult, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but is it just me, or has it felt like we have not seen a lot of Ricken this season? I feel like we got a pretty good dose of Ricken in season 1. Yes, he was a secondary character for sure. By no means a main character, but he had a decent amount of screen time. I feel like we saw him and Devin a little bit more. We see a decent amount of Devin, but I feel like we've barely seen any of Ricken in season 2. Is this just me, or is anybody else getting that feeling?
Yeah, we haven't seen any of Ricken. I'm a huge Ricken fan, so I always keep an eye out for when he's, in an episode, and we haven't seen him. The last that we heard of him, that's correct, Kier Egan, he sold out. That's the last time that we saw him. He was speaking with Natalie, and he agreed to rewrite his book in the version that Lumon wanted him to rewrite the book in. So that's the last that we saw of him, which makes me think maybe he is the mastermind. We haven't seen him. He's super busy, like plotting with the goats.
Like I do really love, and again, I do love the Ricken theories. The Ricken theories are good, and most of the Ricken theories are kind of centered around him being the mastermind, him potentially being in charge of all of this craziness, that it's actually been Ricken just pulling the lumon strings from behind some massive curtain from who knows where. And one thing I did notice in season 1, predominantly, not so much in season 2, because we haven't seen a whole lot in season 2, but a little bit in season 2 as well. One thing that's interesting about Ricken is if you look inside of his house, anytime you see a Ricken scene, pay very close attention to the surroundings, pay very close attention to things like what's on tables, what's on his fireplace, countertops, windowsills, stuff like that. Ricken's house is filled with goat memorabilia. There are goats everywhere in Ricken's house. And I think that's one of those things that kind of fueled a lot of those Ricken fan theories, because I know I'm not the only one who noticed it. I know many other people noticed it as well. There is tons of goat memorabilia in Ricken's house, whether it's just like something, a small little figurine on a table, something small on a fireplace or something. There's this goat memorabilia everywhere, goat pictures, paintings. I don't know. Are they trying to tell us something? Is this Severance trying to lay some kind of hint that Ricken is tied to the goats in some way? Or is this just kind of one of those red herrings where the show is deliberately trying to just throw us off? I don't know.
I think that the chat might be right. He's plotting with the goats. It's Ricken and an army of goats, right? That's going to take over in the finale. So we have our first tinfoil theory, and I think now we have some evidence. I never noticed that, so that's a great catch. I think that he might be the mastermind. You guys might be right.
Might be. That very well, I mean, shit, might be possible. Yeah. I wonder if the goats survive better than cows in their colder climate. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, why they're not on cows and why they're experimenting on goats instead of cows. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I'm not sure. Everyone assumes Gemma's death was faked, but I think she was dead. But though Severance Lumon was able to bring her back, I think Cold Harbor will reveal this to her. Now, that's an interesting one, Robert, and that has been one of those things that has been kind of. It does seem like a lot of fans are just assuming that Gemma's death was faked, that she was never dead. It was just a faked car crash and Lumon grabbed her. But we really don't know yet, do we? That's one of those things that they didn't really answer in the Gemma flashback episode. So that's always been an interesting premise. Like, did Gemma really have this car accident? Was she maybe really, really injured and Lumon kind of saved her in some way? Or is it more along the lines of Lumon kind of faked the car crash entirely just to get Gemma? Because, yeah, that's not something we really know. Was there a car crash? Was there not a car crash? Was Gemma really hurt? Was she not really hurt? Did she die, get brought back to life? There's all these great theories out there, but we still don't really know what 100% happened. So that is a good point. What about you, PM? Do you think that Lumon just faked the car accident, or do you think that maybe she was really hurt and they kind of saved her or brought her back?
Well, now that we have more information, right? We know that Bert said, I drove people places. They went missing, they disappeared, right? It makes me think maybe they got Gemma, right? There wasn't a car crash. They just took Gemma and she is alive. There was no car crash. They staged that, and it was Bert himself who took Gemma to Lumen. That would make sense since he did say that he participated in that. And we have seen
Yeah.
that they have like these sort of bodyguards and people who handle, like security people who handle situations for them.
Yeah.
So potentially.
I mean, I think it's possible. I think it's very well possible, or maybe even plausible. Because, like, and one thing I thought was interesting was Regabi. When Mark says to Regabi earlier in the season, when he straight up says, "But whose body did I identify?" Because as far as Mark knows, he went to the actual morgue and identified a body that was apparently that passed well enough for even him to believe it was Gemma. Like he identified this body as Gemma. So that's what makes it even more interesting, Robert, in terms of, like, you would think someone like Mark, who, this is his wife. I imagine he can tell if this is his wife's body or not. And the fact that he was even convinced that he did positively identify her body, it does make you kind of ask that question even more, that was this really something that happened? Especially when on top of it, Regabi says to Mark that Lumen has people inside the morgue. The morgue is right in Lumen's pocket, just like probably police departments, just like probably journalists. Everybody is in Lumen's pocket at this point, especially within that town of Kier that is so close to their Lumen headquarters. So, yeah, I mean, it is an interesting debate at the very least in terms of what really happened to Gemma. Was there really a car crash? Was it faked? Did she really get hurt? Did she really die? You add in the fact of what happened in the morgue. Whose body did Mark identify if it wasn't Gemma's? How did they pass somebody off to make him think it was Gemma? Was it really Gemma that he identified and then they took her? Like, it makes you it does raise all these questions at the very least. And that's what tonight's for, diving into all of this tinfoil, into all of these theories, and seeing what we can see. But no, it's always been an interesting debate up until this point among the Severance fans, where you have some people kind of leaning one way and some people leaning another way, which is, usually how a lot of these theories go, for sure. Devin said he moves like a goat. She did say that as well. That's right. I do remember that. She did say he moves like a goat. Astrolight, Ricken is definitely sus. So yeah, a lot of people think Ricken is sus. A lot of people think Ricken is sus. I'm still laughing at the army of goats led by Brienne. I mean, that is pretty good. The army of goats led by Sir Brienne of Tarth. Love it. Yeah, like the Lost Boys going for all the boys so they could get to the mom. Yeah, I guess so. I just keep trying to picture Ricken, an expert mountain climber. That's hilarious too. Yeah, when you hear Devin and him talking about the mountain climbing that they did, the rock climbing, and he's talking about being this master rock climber. It's just like, it's not something I can picture. I must say, I could not picture Ricken being a master rock climber, but maybe it's just me. Wait until we see the police come to tell Mark. Yeah, and we do see a little sign of quick little glimpse of the police coming to Mark's door in that flashback Gemma episode, but we don't really know what they say to each other. We don't know what the cops kind of tell him. I imagine they're probably just informing him that, hey, your wife was in a fatal car crash. We need you to come down and identify her body, or they're just informing him in general. It's never good news when you see, plainclothes officers arriving at your house in the dead of night like that. It's probably bad news you're going to hear. And Mark kind of had that vibe about him too. It was almost like as soon as Mark saw the cops at his door, you could kind of see the look on his face. Like he instantly knew he was about to get bad news.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you stated. Anytime that you see the cops arrive at your home, right? Lights on. I mean, anytime really. Why are the cops at your home?
Yeah.
It can't be good, right? But especially knowing that she left for this charades game, right? And the Sevis were talking about that, the fact that she was going to play charades. Did we actually get any info on who she was going with? Was she going over to Ricken's and Devon's?
That's right. Yeah, she said she was going to play charades, but who was she going to play with? I don't remember. I'll have to go back and rewatch that scene, unless the Sevi chat knows if they mentioned Ricken or if they mentioned Ricken or Devin. I do vaguely remember her mentioning something about friends, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong there. So yeah, it's a good question. Who was she going to play this charades with? I do believe she said friends, but I might be wrong. I'm not sure. Not for. Yeah, it was charades. Yeah, she was going to play charades. But I remember, was it she was going to play charades with friends? Or did she specifically mention Devin and Ricken? That's what I don't remember. I think she just said friends. I don't think she mentioned Devin and Ricken. I could be wrong, but for some reason I remember friends in the top of my head. And it seems like, you guys are saying friends as well. Don't think she mentioned Ricken or Devin, but yes, friends. Yeah, I think it was friends. I think so. I think it was just friends. So yeah, it's hard to know who she was with, but that's a very good question. Who was she with that night when this did happen? Could they be sus? And if it was Devin and Ricken, could Ricken be even more sus now? So it is a good question. Very good question. Yeah. Awesome. But for real, I think the goats are the board. There were like 40 chairs in that boardroom. Harmony and Helena talked in season 2, episode 1. Yeah, if that was the boardroom, yeah, there were a million chairs. And anytime you think about this big kind of corporate, multi-conglomerate corporation, you think of their board of directors, you definitely picture a good amount of people. Most boards do have a good amount of people, 12 to 20 around most boards, from what I can tell. But yeah, the Lumen board has always been so mysterious. There's always been another thing that there's been so many theories surrounding. What exactly is the Lumen board? Who makes up the Lumen board? Is it even made up of people? I know a lot of people think that the board is made up of AI, that it's maybe an AI construct that is running Lumen. It's not even people. A lot of theories surrounding the board. What about you guys? Let me know in the chat. And then we'll get to some of these ones that were provided for us in the awesome comment section by all of you guys. But before we do that, last one, what do you guys think of the board? Do you guys have any board theories? What is your favorite board theory? Do you think it is made up of people? Do you think it is made up of AI? If it's made up of people, could it potentially be a boardroom of people? Some people think James Egan himself might be the only board member, that he is the board. What about you guys? What are your favorite board theories? And what about you, PM? When you think about the board, where do you lean a little bit more? Do you think it's people? Do you think it's AI? Multiple people? One person? What do you think?
I'd like to believe that it's multiple people, right?
Yep.
So I'd like to believe that it's multiple people. I remember when Cobel was wanting to speak to the board directly. She didn't want to speak through Natalie. And she said, is the board even there? She was questioning Natalie and what she was saying to her. And we hear yes. And that yes sounds like James, who struggles to speak, right? It sounds like him. He does it in the same way where he is having trouble speaking. So we heard a yes from someone, at least James, but I think it's multiple people. I think it's actual people.
Mm-hmm. I do lean a little bit more towards people as well. I think the AI theories are kind of cool, but I do tend to lean a little bit more towards people. For me, the question is, how many people? Is it just James Egan? Is he the only board member? Because, I mean, he is the CEO. It is his company. It's his family's company. So I could, if they did make James the sole board member, I could maybe understand them going that route. But when I think of a board of directors, I think of a board of directors. And at one point, I even thought it would be interesting if there was maybe only 4 board members. We see the number 4 constantly repeated on the show. 4 MDR workers, 4 tempers. They love throwing things in series of 4. And we already know that one of the tempers has a human representation. We have met the human representation of Frolic, which happens to be Drummond, who we've seen a little bit more of this season. And part of me always thought it would be pretty interesting if there was a physical manifestation, a human representation of each one of these tempers, where Drummond was Frolic, which would leave 3 more for Dread, Malice, and Woe. And those 4 people could make up the board themselves. These 4 people are the board. But I think that's just me kind of tying it to the tempers. That was happening all the way back during episode 4 when Irving kind of tamed his own temper of woe. I thought it would be a very interesting idea if the rest of the MDR employees each also had to tame their own version of woe, which I hope they get to at some point in season 3. But yeah, the board, I mean, there's so many theories surrounding what the board is, who the board is it people, is it AI? And those always tend to be some interesting theories, but I myself, I tend to lean a little bit more towards people as well. I don't think it's an AI, but who knows? Maybe it is. It's James and his laptop of AI. Yeah, a little mix of both. Yeah, the board is multiple people. James is on the board. And that's kind of how I would see it as well. I mean, he is the CEO of the company, so it definitely makes sense that he would be on the board of directors. But I get the feeling it's probably more than just him. I do tend to agree with that. It's kind of where I lean as well, that it's James and multiple other, investors and people who have different interests in the company. It's usually investors that are on the board. The board is James, says Matt Gilbert. Maybe. I think the board is the consciousness of all of the Egan CEOs inside of James, like in being John Malkovich. Now that's an interesting idea. That's a very interesting idea. You got all these different kind of past former CEOs all kind of shoved into James Egan. And I have heard that theory come up a little bit every once in a while, where some people think that's what the revolving is referring to. We hear James Egan say to Helena at the end of season 1, you will be there on my revolving. And a lot of people think that's when James himself will kind of enter that hive mind, and it will pass on to Helena, that he's revolving into this kind of hive mind of former Lumon CEOs, all the former Egans. Which again, interesting theory. Who knows? Maybe it is. Maybe it is. This is what these tinfoil streams are all about. We love hearing these kinds of theories. I love it. I lean towards people too. 4 makes so much sense. I like the 4 thing. I just for the symmetry of it, I guess, as well. I mean, they've been very kind of prominent with the number 4. We have 4s all over the place. So I think it would be a very, just for a symmetry kind of way, it would be interesting to see 4 different board members, and each one of them being a representation of one of these tempers. As we've already met, Frolic is Drummond. I always thought that would be an interesting idea, but who knows? It could be wildly wrong for all I know. I think the board is the Egan mannequins, maybe. Ooh, interesting. Well, I mean, it's funny you bring up the mannequins too, because that's actually one of the few scenes that we do get in the episode 10 teaser trailer. We see a very quick snippet teaser trailer. It is not that long. I'll play it again real quick for anybody who wasn't here at the beginning of the stream. But in the episode 10 preview, the limited episode 10 preview, very short trailer, that is one of the scenes that they show us. We see one of these moving mannequins, one of these animatronic mannequins, which of course also ties right back to the Twilight Zone episode that we just recently got. The After Hours, which was a huge homage to the Twilight Zone episode, The After Hours, with the mannequins that turn into humans. Essentially, it's the same thing, mannequins turning into people. So no, I think that's a very interesting timing for that to come around right around now. And then for us to see the episode 10 preview, and then we literally see one of the mannequins moving. So it's like, okay, maybe it ties in a little bit more to that Twilight Zone episode than we thought. But here is the episode 10 preview where we see one of the mannequins beginning to move, none other than Kier Eagan himself.
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you. She's still alive. They give us half a life and think we won't fight for it.
And last but not least, of course, the goats. But yes, we see that one little quick snippet of the Kier Egan statue moving, turning his head and looking somewhere. And that kind of always just reminded me of a callback to the beginning of the season. At the very beginning of season 3, we see Mark gets back to MDR and he has completely new coworkers. All of his coworkers are gone. Irving, Dylan, and Helly have all been fired. And he's got all of these replacements, the Italian guy and the other 2. And we hear from the other two that their perpetuity wing had animatronic moving statues like we have in our MDR perpetuity wing, but theirs happened to move. So part of me always thought this was that. Like, are we going to get a look at somebody else's perpetuity wing? Are we going to see that perpetuity wing that was mentioned earlier in the season? Is our MDR perpetuity wing going to get an upgrade of sorts? Are they going to start getting these moving animatronic freaking statues? What exactly was that all about? I'm not quite sure, but part of me always thought it was just a tie back to that first episode, and maybe we will see a different perpetuity wing in a different building, maybe. But what about you? What do you think about the moving statues? You think we're going to see another perpetuity wing? I mean, could it just be an upgrade that theirs are getting? Or could that statue be somewhere else entirely, not even in a perpetuity wing?
Well, it's Tinfoil Wednesday.
Yes.
So I'm going to go with the craziest thing I could come up with, okay?
Yes.
I doubt that it's going to be that, but it's tinfoil. Let's go all the way.
It's tinfoil. Let's do it. Yeah.
They're going to do the baby goat sacrifice. After they do that, all of the statues of the Eagans in the perpetuity wing are going to come to life.
Oh,
because
shit.
they're going to do some sort of dark magic ritual that will bring them back to life. That's why it's moving.
I love it. I absolutely love it. That is the kind of tinfoil that I love hearing. That's the kind of rabbit hole that we like to dive into. Oh, man, just a giant goat sacrifice to bring these statues to life. Wouldn't that be something? Oh, man, that would be nuts. That would be absolutely nuts. Love that. Absolutely love that. We got Doc Hayes, who's been a member for 20 months with a member chat. Thank you so much, Doc Hayes. Wow, 20 months, my friend. Thank you so much for that. You've been here from the beginning, ever since we first started diving into From, and even before that, I believe. Thank you so much for always being a supporter of the channel, my friend. You've been a very welcome sight in the chat every time we go live. Very, very awesome to see you. And wow, 20 months. That is awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yay, I made it to a live. Kier, yes, you made it, my friend. You made it. It's good to see you. Good to see you. Awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. Yeah, your Innie has already seen season 3. Maybe our Innie's already seen it. Do you think in season 3 we will get confrontations between the Innie and Audi Sevies? Dylan and Helly/Helena would be so fascinating. I mean, maybe we do see that there is some animosity in between Innie and Audi, whether it's Helly and Helena, whether it's the Dylans. Like, some of these Innies and Audis don't like each other at all. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because we're actually going to be diving into a Innie Audi themed live stream this Friday, where you guys are going to be able to choose who is your favorite, the Innie or the Audi. And we're going to dive into all of the Innie. It's going to be an Innie versus Audi live stream this Friday night, among other things that I'm sure we'll be diving into. But yeah, who knows? Maybe we could see some Innie confrontations in season 3, where, I mean, I think we already saw a little good glimpse of that too, even in season 1, where we see Helly and Helena really kind of at war with each other, back and forth. Like, they were very much playing this game of 4D chess with each other. And it got super dangerous and physical, even, where Helly is threatening to cut off her own fingers. She's trying to hang herself in the elevator, so Helena will actually feel the death when they switch back over from the Innie to Audi, which again is a super clever way to try and kill someone. You jump as you, but hopefully you die as somebody else. Like, that's super ballsy what Helly did in that first season. But I feel like we've already gotten a small glimpse of what that could potentially look like with Helly and Helena going at it back and forth in season 1. So yeah, who knows? I could totally see a little bit more of that happening in season 3, where the Innies and Audis are at odds with one another. Maybe even both marks, depending on how long the reintegration takes. We know that both marks are in love with 2 totally different people. We know that at least one of these loves are not going to survive when they fully finish reintegrating, and it's just Mark. I mean, is he going to have feelings for Helly? Is he going to have feelings for Gemma? Is he going to have feelings for both of them, or neither of them? I mean, it seems like it's not going to end well for one or maybe both of these couples. But yeah, who knows? Maybe we could see some Innie and Audi stuff, for some Innie versus Audi stuff in season 3. Maybe I could potentially see that. Yeah, I could definitely potentially see that. Yeah. All right. Let's dive into these, shall we? Let's dive into these. And now, again, you guys have submitted some really awesome theories. Look, I'll get to a few more because I do see an interesting one here. My theory, after rereading the Lexington letter, is that we'll see an element of witchcraft, like illusions, and that the MDR teams are unwitting covens. Woe and dread is like toil and trouble in Macbeth. Ooh, now that is super interesting. Super interesting one, Kareem. I like that. I like that. I always love hearing new theories that I've never heard before, especially when they tie into some interesting things like witchcraft, illusions. Yeah, I mean, the Lexington letter, that is something that I would suggest every Severance fan, if you are a fan of Severance, I would suggest everybody get out there and read the Lexington letter, because there is some interesting information in there, and it can definitely help you craft some very cool theories from it, like we've seen right here. Kareem is a perfect example of that. Yeah, I like that. My theory after reading the Lexington letter is that we'll see an element of witchcraft and witchcraft-like illusions, and that the MDR teams are unwitting covens. Woe and dread is like toil and trouble in Macbeth. Now, it is so interesting because one thing we hear over and over again, even from the MDR workers themselves, even from Mark himself, saying that the work is mysterious and important. Look, even them convinced that the work is mysterious and important, but we still have no idea what the work is. We know that it's in some way tied to what's going on in that testing room floor and what's happening with Gemma, but we really don't know the full extent of what they are doing. What are they refining? What for? So I feel like anything could really come around the corner at any given moment where that is concerned. But no, that's an interesting one. I mean, I like it. Witchcrafts, illusions. I mean, an unwitting coven, them being unwitting participants in something darker that they don't know they're participating in. Could totally see that.
I love a coven. Kareem, Jesus, Devlin. I think that this is a great idea. Love a coven, love the witchcraft, and it explains the goats, right?
Yeah.
We have been trying to explain away the goats and the dancing at the waffle party.
Yep.
That in itself, that was witchy. That was witchy. That was strange, very unusual. That's coven behavior. So I really like that theory. Good job on that. I actually want that to be true now. I'm going to be very disappointed if there's no witchcraft in this finale.
I like this. I really do like this. Like, this is the perfect kind of theory for this kind of stream that we're doing right here. So you really showed up at the perfect time with this one, Kareem. Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like this theory. I think this is a cool theory. It's an interesting one. It ties together a few different elements of Severance that we don't know a whole lot about into an actual theory. This is a great one, man. This is a freaking great one. Awesome stuff. Wow. Awesome stuff. Wow. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And again, everybody definitely check out that Lexington letter. There's some interesting stuff. Some interesting stuff in there. And yeah, I love the super weird waffle party. The waffle party was very weird, very interesting, but it was tons of fun. And it's crazy to know that we almost didn't get that scene. The music dance experience in season 1 was not originally written in the script. That was not originally supposed to be part of that episode. That was something they thought up of on the fly when they were filming the episode, and they happened to just write it in. And even after they did write it in, all they wrote in was music dance experience with no details. They had to come up with what they were going to do on site. And you hear Trammell Tillman talk about this in a few interviews where he explains it exactly like that, where they had to kind of come up with this sequence almost on the fly. And it was kind of one of those things where just you pick a certain kind of style of music and you just go and you just let the cameras roll. And apparently they just had fun with it like that. And it just happened to turn into one of the most iconic Severance scenes of all times. But it's so interesting to know that we almost didn't get that scene. That scene was not even ever supposed to be a part of that episode. But whoever idea it was, whoever kind of brought that up in the last minute and got it put into the episode, bravo to you, because it really did turn into probably the most famous Severance scene up until this point. People who haven't even seen Severance, you see that and you kind of instantly know it. Like me, like for a while before I even watched Severance, I would see that scene and I would instantly know that's a Severance scene just because it was so famous at that point. But yeah, it's interesting to know we almost didn't get that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's very interesting. And it makes me wonder, how is it that they planned it? Because when the music dance experience begins, Mr. Milkshake turns on the lights in the ceiling, and you see all the lights going, right? So it makes me wonder, how did they work that in, right? If it was just something that they came up with, were the lights already installed? I have questions.
Mm-hmm. I do. I have some questions. There's some questions to be had for sure. For sure. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm just now at this point I can't picture Severance without that scene. Like I can't even picture the lore of Severance. Like when I think of Severance in my head, Milchick dancing is one of the first visuals I think of. Like he's got great moves in that scene. He's killing it. You see Irving super awkward trying to dance. You see Mark super awkward trying to dance, but freaking Milchick, he's got it. He's just got it. He's ready to go. Great moves. But yeah, I can't picture Severance. Yeah.
Yeah. Out of all of them, I think that's a great point. Out of all of their dancing, I think it's him and Helly with her
Helly
little
too.
maraca.
Helly too, yeah. That's a good point. Helly was pretty good. She was jamming too. Helly was also jamming. Good stuff. Waffle Party have one person wear a goat mask. I wonder if this goat god or king. Yeah, we see that weird kind of goat god looking dress up guy in the goat farm. He's got the weird kind of goat suit on. It looks like he's almost got this pagan ritual ready to go kind of thing, which again ties in a little bit more to the goat sacrifices and the ritualistic kind of coven stuff that you guys were talking about, that Kareem brought up a little bit earlier with his theory. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? There's some weird stuff going on at Lumen, guys. Weird stuff going on at Lumen. Theory for the finale: Cobel double crosses Mark and informs Lumen that he's reintegrated. As a result, they torture Gemma to make Mark finish the Cold Harbor file, hence the high violence rating. Interesting, Robert Pattinson. Very interesting. And I have a feeling, and I have a similar feeling. I like the torture Gemma idea. That could be very, very interesting to put any Mark through that, because I imagine that might be something that any Mark would probably crack under the pressure with. But yeah, I mean, that's what's so interesting about how episode 9 ends. They have a chance to actually talk to any Mark. And I imagine the first thing they're going to say to any Mark is to inform him that, hey, you cannot finish this file. If you finish this file, it means Gemma dies. At least according to Cobel, if they finish Cold Harbor, it could mean Gemma's death. Does that mean Gemma's actual physical death? Or does that mean Gemma's personalities will die, leaving only Miss Casey? We're not quite sure. Is it real death? Which kind of death is it? But either way, it will not be good for Gemma. The Gemma that we know will suffer because of it. So when I see Drummond smashing Mark up against the wall, that was my first thought, that maybe any Mark goes back to work and he refuses to work outright, and Drummond kind of threatens him with physical violence to get him to finish Cold Harbor. Or maybe it's one of those things where Mark is pretending to work, stalling for as much time as he possibly can, and they catch on to him. Like Drummond realizes that he's stalling and does the same thing, threatens him with violence to complete the file. Or as you mentioned, threatens Gemma even, which could be even worse for Mark. So no, that's an interesting one. I like that. I very much like that.
All right, that they could see everything that they're doing, right?
Very much.
So I remember you showed us in your video where we're looking at the people that are watching Mark, Helly. They look the same, right? Like the clone-like people. And they could see what the person is doing in the computer and all of their work. So if he's like stalling or doing it incorrectly, they would immediately know. He can't really get away with it.
They would. Yeah, it's not like that's a good point. That is a good point. Because when the office is empty, we see there's nobody in those rooms. Like we saw that in episode 9 when there was nobody in the room. Dylan wasn't there. Helly was just arriving. She wasn't at her desk yet. Mark wasn't there. All we see is the one doctor there monitoring the computers, monitoring Mark's and saying, hey, you know, the numbers are moving kind of thing. But once all of them are actually there, I imagine those shadow people probably return. And yes, so that's a good point. If he is stalling, they would pick up on that. sooner rather than later. So that's a very good point. I forgot about that the shadow people would know in a minute. And we know Drummond always seems to be in that room monitoring it, what's going on. And with them being so close to 100%, just a 4% away from completing Cold Harbor, I imagine Drummond's going to be right there watching the whole time, waiting for this to get finished, especially now that they're already a day behind quota. So no, that's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah, Kier is the man in yellow, says All City Big Heck. Maybe he is. Maybe Kier is the man in yellow. All right, now let's get to some of these that you guys submitted in the comment section, because we promised we would bring these up, and you guys brought up some interesting ones, and we'll definitely go back and forth and get some more from you guys in the live chat as well. But here we have, I think the violence rating is going to come from Bert getting hurt or killed after he failed to deliver Irving. Now, I love this one because this is actually one that I thought of as well. I mean, great minds think alike. And I know many other people were worried about this as well, because we see at the end of episode 9, Bert was supposed to deliver Irving to Lord knows where, but instead he brings him to the train station and lets him go free. At least we think so. And yes, even Irving asks Bert, aren't Lumon going to come after you because of this? And that was my first worry as well. I'm like, man, Bert, he knows he's disobeying a direct order from Lumon. He knows that not delivering Irving is going to be troublesome. It's going to be problematic. And does he even know that maybe he will get killed because of this? Is he sacrificing his life essentially to let Irving go free? So yeah, I've always wondered that. Is Bert going to be in some kind of mortal danger now that he disobeyed a direct order from Lumon? I don't know. Maybe. I guess we'll find out. But what about you? Do you think that could potentially be a reason for the V for violence? Think we could actually see
yes.
Bert get grabbed up by Lumon or worse?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So this was submitted by Oh My God, It's Full of Stars. And Oh My God, It's Full of Stars. It totally makes sense. We were talking
Yes.
about the beauty of the ending of that relationship on the last stream. We were talking about that sacrificial Romeo and Juliet sort of ending with Bert and Irving. And what made it beautiful, which is a point that you made, Jeremy, was that we didn't know if Bert was going to have to pay the price for not having completed his job, which I'm guessing that they're going to know. They're immediately going to know. They're going to notice that he didn't do what he was supposed to do. So I could definitely see that being the case. Now, the thing about it is Irving, right? He goes on the train. However, we still don't know the whole Mind Collective, who they are, anything about them. And to me, it just seems like that's a door that's been left open, and we need to close that chapter. Like, who is it? Who was he talking to on the phone? What is his part in the whole Mind Collective? Are we going to get that in the finale? Is Irving going to come back, or is that potentially for the next season?
That I have been wondering. Yeah, I haven't wondered, and that is a really good question, because if this is the end for Irving this season, then yeah, that is kind of left open, and that kind of brings up this perfect question that All City Big Heck has, which is my answer as well. I have a question for y'all. What would be the one thing that if the next episode doesn't resolve, you'd be most disappointed with? And I don't know if it'd be the most disappointed, but just off the top of my head, after just talking about that right there, I mean, not finding out who Irving was talking to, not finding out who was on the other end of that phone. If we don't find that out this season, yeah, that will be something I'll be a little bit disappointed with. I mean, it'll give me a little bit of hope to think maybe they'll be bringing Irving back in season 3. But when you start a kind of side storyline like that and you don't finish it within the same season that you started in, like, I totally understand them carrying over main big storylines from one season to the other. But when you have these smaller side storylines, you tend to want to see these ones wrapped up in the same season that they're introduced in. Yeah, that would be one of them for me. That would at least be one of them. If we don't find out who Irving was talking to on the other end of the phone, that would be a little disappointing. Do you have one thing that would make you a little if we didn't get an answer for it in this finale?
I mean, it has to be Cold Harbor, Sevis. They have been talking about Cold Harbor, and I think that we are going to get that answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to know more about it. I want to know the entire thing. What was the point of taking Gemma? Why was she split into so many innies? I want them to resolve it to the point where I understand it, right? If they were not to complete that or not to resolve it in a way that everything makes sense, I would be disappointed. Do I think that they're going to do that? No, not Severance. Severance is an amazing show that manages to wrap everything up within minutes. And um, I don't think it would happen, but that would be what I would be disappointed of.
Yeah. I would be too. Like, if we don't at least find out like what Cold Harbor really is, what was the point of all of this? I feel like they have to give us that this season. Like that, like they can reveal what Cold Harbor is and maybe not reveal the full extent as to how it's going to affect the rest of the show until season 2. They could leave it on some sort of cliffhanger, but I feel like we need to at least find out what it is. Even if we don't find out what purpose it's going to be used for, what the full end game is, we at least need to find out what Cold Harbor is. So yeah, that will be a very big disappointment if we don't find that out at the end of this season. It'll be a very disappointing one, indeed. Great stuff already, guys. Awesome. We got Abe Lincoln 2064 with an awesome one here. He says, again, Irving died, quotations, retired. In quarter 822, 220 years, which means it's either 2090 or 2030 or 2230 or not 2022. Cobel, Gemma, Dylan, Irving, Bert are all dead, and what we are seeing are advanced VR simulations based entirely around events and memories from the 2020s, when everybody was killed by war, disease, or natural disaster. That is an interesting one. That is a very interesting one because, I mean, there has been a lot of debate as to where Severance takes place, when Severance takes place. And while the story we're watching is supposedly supposed to take place in 2022, there are still all these theories as to what's really going on. I tend to think it really is just taking place in 2022. I think it's a world that is kind of like ours, but a little bit different from ours, where it's got a lot of similarities, but some differences. Like, for instance, it's definitely Earth. There's definitely the United States. We see that Severance itself is legal in some states and illegal in some other states. So it's a similar world to what we live in, but this is also a sci-fi show at the end of the day as well. So you can expect some elements of sci-fi in this world. And I think that's where the technology comes in. Some of the, not just the Severance technology, but we see some of the other tech in the episodes and in the shows as well, where like you look at some of like season 1 kind of leaned into this a little bit more than season 2 does. But season 1 gives you a heavy kind of 70s, 80s aesthetic and some of the kind of technology and things that you see, whether it's the way Milchick dresses in season 1, whether it's the kind of headphones that Milchick is always wearing in season 1 that look like they come straight out of the freaking 80s. There's this weird blend, this weird mix of all of these different kind of technologies, where sometimes you'll even see something like smartphones in Helena's hand in season 2. She has a smartphone. And then you look at all the cars that are in the world. None of the cars look like they were built a second past 1970. All of the cars look old. You never see modern cars in this show. So it's a very weird mix of kind of old technology and new technology to create this weird world that's kind of similar to ours, but not exactly like ours. And I think we get another hint of that in the orientation film at the beginning of season 2 as well, when we hear that Lumon is operating in 206 different countries around the world, where we know we only have, 195, 196 countries in our world. We don't even have 206 sovereign nations. But this world has 206 sovereign nations that Lumon is operating alone. So yeah, whenever I think of the world of Severance, I always think of a world like ours, but slightly different with a sci-fi twist to it. But I do think it all takes place in their version of 2022.
Yeah, I like it. So I think that this theory it makes sense, right? And we're talking tinfoil, right?
Yeah.
So do I think it's going to be, maybe not, but let's dive into it, right? If
Yeah.
it was the case that this was just a VR simulation, like Peach in the chat mentions, one of our sevies, we don't see a lot of random people around.
Very
So
true.
Abe
Very
Lincoln
true.
makes a great point because
Yeah.
they are pointing out the people that we do see. We know that in the office, we have these long hallways, but they don't really see other people, right?
Yeah.
They didn't even know where to find another department until Bert and Irving started talking and gave each other directions. So I think that that in itself, what Peach said, we don't see other people around, so potentially, yeah, I could see it.
I could definitely see it. I mean, that's an interesting idea because I mean, just when you guys just pointed that out now, I stopped and thought like, holy shit, yeah, you're right. Very rarely do we ever see just people walking around. Like when you're in the Lumen lobby, like once in a while, you'll see like a couple other people walking around. But anytime you're on the streets, anytime you see the cars driving around, yeah, you very rarely see people just like walking around the street. So no, that's a very good point. A very good observation. Awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. Maybe Cold Harbor is actually a replica of James' birthday cabin. Ooh, interesting, Susie. Maybe. Who knows? I mean, it could be anything at this point, I guess, for sure. For sure. The town is a simulation. Everyone is severed to a different degree. That everyone is severed to a different degree than the innies. Yeah, I mean, there are some of these simulation theories going around, and a lot of people seem to think episode 4 was one giant simulation where maybe they never even took the innies to the outside world. That Orpo was one giant kind of virtual reality inside a special floor of Lumen. A lot of people think they never even went outside. So the simulation theories, the virtual reality theories, those have been some pretty popular ones in the Severance fandom up until this point. But so yeah, who knows? Who knows what is going on? Who knows what's going on? No simulations, no clones, says Matt Gilbert. I would not want to see simulations. Like clones wouldn't bother me personally. Like if we saw some clone action, I think that could be kind of cool. I wouldn't mind that. But I really don't want to see simulations. Just me personally, I guess. I'm just not a big fan of really interesting stories being reduced down to a simulation where you have all of this interesting and intriguing stuff that you're hoping to get more prevalent answers behind or deeper answers behind, only to find out that it's just been a simulation the whole time. I've never been a big fan of the simulation theories myself, but clones I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind clones. I would not mind clones. What about you? When it comes to the simulation theories, is that something you would like to see, or are you would you rather see something a little more detailed?
Well, it makes me think of a recent interview that I saw with the creator. The creator did maybe just 2 days ago an interview where they were talking about the boys for the macro data rebellion video. So remember the voice, and you right away knew who the voice was, right?
Yeah, Keanu.
Right? So the interviewer asked the creator about why did he specifically choose Keanu. And all he says, he doesn't even confirm that it's him. We all know it is.
We know.
But he doesn't confirm that it's him. And he just says, I wanted a voice to invoke a certain reaction in the viewers. And what reaction do you get? What do we know him for? What we know him for is the Matrix. So to me, that makes perfect sense, right? This could all be just a simulation.
It could be. It could be. I mean, I would be a little disappointed if that was the case. But I mean, if he's specifically saying that, that's an even bigger hint that maybe there's some kind of simulated reality going on here that we don't know about. Because when you think of Keanu Reeves, it's got to be the Matrix, the first thing you think about. That's what he's probably most famous for. I know he's famous for a great many roles, but the Matrix is like the first thing you think of. When you think Matrix, you think Keanu Reeves. So no, that's an interesting tidbit. That's an interesting tidbit. I did not see that interview, so I didn't know that, but that's very interesting. Yeah, the Matrix. Definitely the Matrix, for sure. For sure. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, I hope it's not simulation, but who knows? Who knows where this thing is going? Who knows where this thing is going? All right, let's see what else we got next. Let's see. Dylan is going to be tasked with completing Cold Harbor. Lumen is going to give any Dylan his family. Outie Dylan will be sacrificed. Ooh. Damn. Now this is some savage stuff. I mean, let's walk through this. Now, the first part, having Dylan finish Cold Harbor. Is that something that's even going to be possible? Or, I mean, it always seemed like only Mark could complete Cold Harbor. Like Mark was essential to Cold Harbor being completed. It seems like whenever Mark isn't at work, they can't complete Cold Harbor. They're stuck on 96% because Mark himself isn't there. So I don't know if any Dylan can complete Cold Harbor, even if he wanted to. Like the way that Lumen has been so invested in Mark, the way that we've seen how important Mark is to Lumen. Dylan isn't important to Lumen. They had no problem firing Dylan at the beginning of the season. They only brought Dylan back because it's something Mark wanted. So I don't know if anybody but Mark can complete Cold Harbor. I think Mark is the only one that can do it. And I think that's due to the potential emotional and deep connection that he has to the subject, which is Gemma. We know Gemma is directly tied to whatever Cold Harbor is. We know whatever they're refining, the data they're refining definitely has something to do with her and her personalities. But I don't know. I always kind of got the feeling that Mark is the only one that can complete Cold Harbor. I don't think anybody but him can do it. I think they're relying on that connection between him and Gemma. But what do you think? Think there's a possibility somebody else could complete Cold Harbor? Or I just feel like they would have gotten somebody else to do it by now if they could have. It feels like they need Mark.
Absolutely. I think that they need Mark, right? Because they wouldn't have made it such a big deal of not having complete the momentous day without Mark, right? They could have just called Dylan. But you get 2 tinfoil stars because that is insane. Also, I really like the Innie versus Audi that you have in here of them potentially getting rid of Audi Dylan and keeping Innie Dylan. I don't know how they would do that, but we do see that his wife is holding a child and kissing a version of him. We don't know if it's the Innie or the Audi. So I definitely like that part of it because I would totally vote Innie Dylan. Like he's the one that I want to make it through, especially after the last episode and the whole like proposal scene and all of that. It was so sad. So I like that part of it. And super tinfoil. Love it.
I do love it. Like this is the kind of tinfoil that you like to chew on every once in a while, right? Like this is a good one. Because I do like the idea of these kind of innies and outies being at odds with one another. I feel like in season 1, that was the episode that really pulled me into Severance and really started making me really like the show was season 1, episode 4. When Helly and Helena were just going to war back and forth. Like it made this Severance connection so much more interesting to think, yeah, what if you add this element of the Innie and the Audi hating each other? How do 2 personalities coexist in the same body when they hate each other? That just adds such an interesting dichotomy to what is already very complex. So that's when I really started loving the show for me personally. But yeah, no, I like that idea. That again, as PM said, extra tinfoil points on that one, kind of, putting them up against one another. And, for even Lumen going as far as dangling Innie Dylan with the possibility of him having a life outside of Severance. We know that's exactly what Dylan wants. All Innie Dylan wants is to have a life with Gretchen and his family, so much that we even see him proposing to her in the last episode, which we know is kind of an impossibility because he can't really exist in the outside world. But this would give him that opportunity where they kind of you sacrifice Audi Dylan, switch him over to Innie Dylan, let him leave Lumen, and happily ever after, I suppose. Who knows? Who knows? That was a good one. That was a very good one. I like it. Let's see what else we got next. We got Becker Clips 6245. Thank you so much, Becker. I think that Cold Harbor is a test of Gemma's car crash, but maybe seeing if the reincarnated version of Gemma would be smarter and avoid it and survive it. Ooh, interesting. Because maybe they're trying to make a cloned or reincarnated version of someone smarter or better, and they're testing it with Gemma so they can make a reincarnated version of Kier that is stronger and smarter. I like this. I think this is an interesting one. I think this is a very interesting one. It ties in a few different elements that have been pretty popular in a lot of these theories thus far, like Gemma, for instance. I think that's an interesting idea that maybe Gemma did kind of survive this car crash, or she didn't survive this car crash, and now they're recreating it and seeing if she will survive it this time, and if that is one giant test to bring back a more efficient version of Kier, because that actually would tie into one of Kier's biggest kind of flaws about himself, When Kier was on his deathbed, we know towards the end of his life, he was in an extreme amount of pain. He was bedridden. He had these genetic deformities because he was a product of incest. So he never had the best of health to begin with. So if Lumen wanted to bring Kier back, I could totally understand them wanting to bring back a version of Kier that would be healthy, much more healthier than the original version, at least. So no, I like this. I think this is an interesting one. Them doing all of this, putting Gemma through all of this, just so they can bring back a more stronger, efficient version of Kier. I like that. I think that's an interesting one. What do you think about that one?
I like the idea, right?
Yeah.
I think it's tinfoil, so good job, Becker Clips.
Yeah.
But also, it's a little bit closer to, I would say, what we have seen in the theories that have been coming up with actual evidence. So it makes me think of Nikki Panda, one of our sevies. Nikki Panda noticed that the Cold Harbor room, the ID number is the same ID number as Helly's. And she has a similar theory to these, where she says Cold Harbor is them putting Gemma through different sorts of unalivings to see which one would work, how she would react, and if she becomes, if you could get rid of an innie, keep the vessel, the body, and use it to put someone else in. So all with the idea that Kier needs to come back, and he's obviously going to need a vessel. I love it. I think that at this point, we all kind of are leaning into the idea that Kier needs to come back. He wants to come back. It's like the second coming of Kier, right? He thinks of himself as a god, so that would totally make sense.
Yeah, I would. I mean, and it's been one of the biggest fan theories up until this point, hasn't it? Up until now, everyone wondering, is all of this in some kind of weird effort to bring Kier back, to resurrect Kier, to clone Kier? Like, there's been so many bringing Kier back theories ever since the show started. Yeah, who knows? I mean, who knows what, and that's what's so fun about this Cold Harbor thing. I feel like the show can tell us what Cold Harbor is while also leaving it a little bit open as to what it's going to be used for. How are they going to apply it? I feel like they can tell us one without spoiling the other if they do it right. And that's why it's very interesting to see how season 2 is going to end. Are we going to get like just a ton of answers, or are we going to leave a little bit more on some kind of cliffhanger like we did in season 1? But no, that's an interesting one. Very interesting one. Maybe this is all in an effort to bring back a more efficient Kier. I could see that. I could see that. Let's see what else we got. Yes, the Kier cult and Lumen were bad, seeking to enslave the world with the chip implants. But now that everybody is dead, the AI servers around the world are now running Lumen and are seeking to bring back the dead, still praising Kier. As the chip implants store all the memories of clients, works, and Kier's family members. And the Twilight Zone episode reference was all about a mannequin believing she's a real person and forgetting the real reason for the transformation. So most, if not all, are AI, and the other and other than the servers, they all believe they are living, breathing human beings and do not want to die for the other. Now that's interesting. I think it's interesting how you tie it back to the Twilight Zone references and the Twilight Zone episode that we saw. How that is basically the premise behind the After Hours. It's these living, breathing mannequins who have no idea that they're not human. They have no idea that they're not mannequins. And if an AI program is running under the assumption where it doesn't want the program to know that it's a program, which is very similar to the matrix and simulation theory in our real world. Like, if we were living in a simulation, how would we ever know? How would we ever know this isn't real? How would we ever know that we're not real people? That's one thing that's always been super trippy and weird about these simulation theories that exist everywhere, not just in shows, but even in the real world. People always bring up the idea of, if this is a simulation and it is that good of a simulation, how would we ever know that's what we're living? We couldn't. There's really no way to know. And that makes it kind of spooky. But yeah, no, I think that's an interesting one. Again, some of the AI theories, some of these simulation and AI theories can be interesting at times. I do hope they go a little bit more of the practical route in terms of what's really going on, but this is some interesting stuff.
Yeah, I love it. And it's like you said, right? Scientifically, we have seen in a real world that scientists have said more likely than not, there are multiple realities, or this could be a simulation, right? And we are not aware. So potentially we're looking at a show that could be like a reality where we think that we are people. We're not aware that we're not real, and neither are they. I love the tinfoil. It's like tinfoil iceberg, and it's making my head hurt, and I love it. Good job.
It is. It's tinfoil on top of tinfoil with a side of tinfoil at this point. And yeah, I'm all for it. I am all for it. Yeah, the entire two seasons has been Cold Harbor for Gemma. Yeah, I mean, what is it all leading up to, right? I mean, this Cold Harbor has been the main storyline of season 2. It's all been leading up to this. Are we going to find out? Are we going to find out just what exactly Cold Harbor really is? Awesome stuff. I guess all along is that Cold Harbor is human mind transfer. It's bringing Kier back to life. And here we have another bringing Kier back to life theory. Again, the Kier theories have been super popular on the show ever since the very beginning of the show. A lot of people tend to think that that's where this is heading. I myself even did a bringing back Kier theory video, tying all of these very interesting similarities that we share with that Severance shares with the original Frankenstein novel, actually, which was a ton of fun to make. Love doing that video. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there must be a reason why such a huge portion of the fandom is so kind of behind this bringing Kier back theory. I don't know if that is really the case. I don't know if that's what they're really doing, but I know it's certainly been a very popular theory from the very beginning that the ultimate goal is to bring Kier back. And again, I can understand why people might think that. Like you mentioned earlier, PM, they praise Kier in this show as though he is this kind of god, this deity-like figure, this messiah-like figure. And yeah, wouldn't you want the second coming of your messiah if you are a company like Lumon, who runs a little bit more like a religious extremist organization than it does a business? They're not really a company. They're more of a cult. And we even see that, cults were a huge inspiration behind creating the kind of mindset behind Lumon. So we know that's what they were going for. But yeah, who knows? Maybe bringing back Kier is the ultimate end game. I know a lot of people seem to really like that theory.
Yeah, I like it. And let's put it together. Tinfoil. So it's the baby goats sacrifice, the coven of witches. The coven of witches sacrifices the baby goats, and then this sort of witchcraft will bring Kier back to life. Jeez. And he will look like Frankenstein. There you go.
It's full circle. The tinfoil has completely come full circle now. I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, she's alive. Revolving. I know. Is that the revolving? I don't know. Yeah, if anyone's killing someone, it's Drummond. Yeah, for the V for violence, if anyone's going to kill someone, Drummond definitely seems like he is. He could fill that role for Lumon. But yeah, I don't know. It's is this all leading to some kind of miraculous Kier resurrection? I don't know. I guess we shall see. But again, I know it's a very, very popular theory among the fandom. Awesome stuff. We got J2 the G. The board itself is giving me strong Neuromancer vibes. Neuromancer is the sibling AI of the novel's main antagonist, Wintermute. Neuromancer's most notable feature is its ability to copy minds and run them as RAM, allowing stored personalities to grow, LOL. I like the grow. There you go. I like that. Very good. And develop. Unlike Wintermute, Neuromancer has no desire to merge with its sibling AI, Neuromancer. Already has its own stable personality and believes such a fusion will destroy that identity. The author William, and that's pretty interesting. It doesn't want to merge because it feels it will destroy that identity, which is very similar to the Severance chip and Reintegration, where we're seeing exactly that happen, where Mark's innie and his outie are merging into one, and we have to wonder, is that going to change the overall personality of one or both of the Marks? So that kind of fits in there as well. So yeah, it's interesting. The author William Gibson defines Neuromancer as neuro from the nerves, the silver path, romancer, necromancer, I call up the dead. This is an interesting theory. I like this one. I actually like this one a lot. I like the Neuromancer angle. It does seem like it is a similar kind of thing that is going on here with Severance. Again, when you bring up the whole personality and not wanting to merge with its other version of itself, that is super Severance. That is basically is screaming reintegration. That is reintegration at the end of the day. So no, this is a very interesting one that maybe it is something along those lines where it's this kind of AI, where the board maybe is some kind of sophisticated AI. I know a lot of people love the AI board theory, but yeah, what do you think about this one?
I like it.
Yeah.
J2 Theg, very good. I love the whole I call up the dead. Very spooky, very freaky, very tinfoil.
I like that.
My question for you is so in the quote, it's the silver path, romancer, necromancer, I call up the dead.
Yes.
Romancer. So he's very romantic. He's like a romantic witch who calls up the dead. I need to know more about that. Why is he romantic?
What's he
What does that have
romancing?
to do with necromancer? So, but I like it. Tinfoil stars for you.
Yeah, definitely some tinfoil stars for sure. Definitely some tinfoil stars there. Yeah, I watched the Twilight Zone, the after hours last night, and now I have a strong suspicion that the mannequins in the perpetuity wing are meant to remind us of that episode. I think that's the revolving. Interesting, brisket and ribs, and maybe it is. Maybe it is. I mean, we know that Ben Stiller has mentioned in the past that Twilight Zone is a huge inspiration of the show, and he's a huge Twilight Zone fan. It's not that he's just a fan of it. It did influence Severance, and Ben Stiller has even said as much. So yeah, when we see the after hours and all of the very close relations that we see in that Twilight Zone episode to episode 9, and even more so with the mannequins in the perpetuity wing, especially in episode 10, when we actually see a preview of one of the mannequins start to move, it definitely makes you think of that last hour's Twilight Zone episode, and you start to think maybe there's a little bit of a deeper connection than just the title of episode 9 and the little bit of dialogue that Miss Cobel says to the guard at the birthing lodge, at the birthing cabins to gain entry. That might have been just the start of the connection between the Twilight Zone episode and Severance. Maybe it does go a little bit deeper, and it does kind of involve these mannequins as well. Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's an interesting one. I think it
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Also, when we think about it, in the Twilight Zone, the whole point of getting her to understand that she is a mannequin, it's so that she can agree to go back to being a mannequin because it's somebody else's turn. The revolving, right? So she had her turn to be alive, and now it's someone else's. So I really like that theory, and potentially that means that the mannequin is moving because it's that person's turn to be the board, to be alive.
Interesting. I like that. Like it's a revolving. You're revolving from one to the other. I mean, maybe. We still have no idea what the revolving is really referring to, but it could be that. It could very well be that. I like that a lot. Awesome stuff. When did the mannequin move, please? The mannequin moves in the episode 10 preview. In episode 10, we see a little preview. And again, I'll play it again for anybody who maybe wasn't here earlier when we played it. There's a very quick little preview of a few scenes that are going to be in episode 10. And one of the scenes is the Kier Egan statue moving. Like you can see him turning his head. And again, I'll play it one more time here so you guys can see it. But it looks like we are going to get the perpetuity wing mannequins in this episode. And one of them, again, looks like it's moving.
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you. She's still alive. They give us half a life and think we won't fight for it.
There we go. Yeah, we see the Kier Egan statue itself start to tilt its head and look to the side. So it looks like we are going to be getting some moving mannequins in this final episode. Now, what perpetuity wing is that? Is that even a perpetuity wing? I'm not sure. But that is where the moving mannequin comes in. And that's, again, just kind of another connection to the Twilight Zone episode of The After Hours. More moving mannequins coming to life kind of thing. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let's see what else we got. We got a few more to get through. We got Sweet Pea next. Look at the picture of Kier above James at the computer terminal. It's half in the light, half in the dark. I don't think Kier had a brother. I think it was his more animalistic urges that he killed. If you listen to the tale of Kier unable to drown out his cries of his brother masturbating, even though he covers his ears, it sounded like he couldn't draw it out because it was himself. Just food for thought. And this has been another one that has been popping up ever since episode 4 first aired, where there has been a lot of people that think that Kier never even had a brother, that Dieter was never even a real person, that it was just a part of Kier's personality that he needed to kill off, a part of himself that he needed to kill. And that part in that specific instance was his woe, his feeling, this love that he had for his brother, or this part of himself that he feels like he needed to kill off. And I've seen the fandom kind of go both ways with that, where some people think Dieter Egan was a real person, and some people think he wasn't. And I see really good evidence for both. I think I see some decent evidence that points to him potentially being real. I like the way that they describe the death of Dieter Egan in terms of they describe him kind of what sounds like him getting his head smashed in, and then we hear his hair turning to moss and falling off of his skull, which sounds a very much lot like decomposition, like seeing his body actually decompose into the ground, which would fit with that kind of episode's theme, as we see earlier, that animal that the MDR team comes up on, the dead seal-like creature that is very much decomposing back into the ground, which we hear from the actor who plays Milchick. That dead seal-like creature was not put there on accident. That was deliberately put there for the MDR team to see, almost like they needed to see this decomposing creature before they heard that story. So that always led me to believe that there could be a possibility that Dieter Egan maybe was real and that he was his brother, that he did really kill his brother, kind of Cain and Abel style. But I also see some other points that could potentially point to him maybe just being a figment of Kier's imagination as well. So there is evidence to kind of support both of those theories, if nothing else. I guess it's really a matter of which one do you prefer as a fan, really. But what about you, PM? When you think of the Dieter Kier Egan story dynamic, do you think Dieter could have been a real person, or do you think it was maybe more of a figment of his imagination that he needed to kill off?
Well, Sweet Pea, I think that it could be both, right?
Ooh.
I like the idea that it wasn't a real person, because that makes me think of one of your videos, Jeremy. You did a video where you examine each of the innies and outies and how the version of the innie was always the better version.
Mm-hmm.
And the outies were always that person's worst parts of themselves, right?
Yeah.
They were not having as good of a life. They were not as kind, as happy, as innocent. And so it makes me think of that video. So this invokes that idea of having two people inside your head.
Yeah.
One that is telling you to go out into the woods and do all of this frolicking, and one that is telling you, go back home. You need to go back home. Stop doing what you're doing. We all know what he was doing. Like, stop. Go home. So I like it. I like the idea. Now, if it was a real person, I start thinking true crime, Sevis. If this was in fact a real person, then what about the investigation? He came home, he killed his brother, he unalived his brother. What about the investigation? The parents had to be looking for this other sibling of his.
Yep.
And if he left the body there, then they would have found the body. So I like both ideas. Yeah.
I do. Again, I can definitely see evidence for both. I can see why some people would think that Dieter was a real person, but I can definitely see why some people think Dieter was all inside Kier's head the entire time. This is one of those theories that it could easily go both ways. Yeah, I like it. Maybe Dieter was his innie, and that's why he wants to separate them. And that's another reason that does kind of point to Dieter potentially being real, I think, where Dieter and Kier could have potentially been the first representation of a severed individual, because they were twins. They did everything together. They were never separated, yet they were different at the end of the day. And again, the way they describe Kier kind of killing his own brother, it makes you think like he was killing his severed self. Like this was the first representation of a severed individual, and it was two twin brothers. So I like that kind of potential aspect between the two, where maybe this was the first representation of a severed individual. But again, there's also a ton of evidence that points to maybe him just being, inside of his head the whole time, or as you mentioned, maybe inside of his head, that's what that was his innie, outie innie, in terms of it was all just one person. I could definitely be that as well, for sure. Awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. Let's see what else we got. We got DJ DKSF1. I'm very fired up about the finale. For now, I'm leaning towards something like Innie James being the intended target for the new incarnation of Kier Egan, with the final training on his resurrected consciousness being done using Gemma's various Innie persona. I also think we might see a full-on revolt by Milkshake. Of course, we may not get that far into the plot. We learn everything about Lumon in the next episode. It's hard to imagine where season 3 goes, and I'd be worried they'd pull a total Westworld and just pivot to a completely new setting. That would be something I definitely would not want them to do that either. Like, I feel like that's what kind of really killed Westworld. Like, Westworld season 1 was phenomenal. It was such a good show during season 1. But from season 2 of Westworld on, it just was never as good again. I mean, it was never the same again. It didn't have that same setting. It didn't have that same feeling. You started visiting all of these other different parks like Shōgun World and Futuristic World, all these other, it didn't have the same feel. And in my opinion, it wasn't nearly as good as that first awesome season set in that one setting. So I would definitely love to see Severance stay the course in terms of have this kind of setting that is already portrayed between the nice balance of the outside world and inside the severed floor. I wouldn't want to see them stray from that format. I feel like that format has worked very well for them up until this point. And when you introduce an entirely new setting into a series, you're changing the series fundamentally. And I think that's why Westworld suffered, because I know I certainly wasn't the only one who wasn't a big fan of the rest of the Westworlds after season 1. But no, that'll be pretty interesting. In terms of James Egan, though, being prepped for him to be the final incarnation of Kier Egan, that's an interesting idea. Could that potentially be what the revolving was referring to? James revolving into Kier kind of thing. Again, we see a lot of these theories over and over and over again of a lot of people think that this is the end game, that it is all in preparation to bring back Kier. The only thing that differs is how they're going to bring back Kier. We have all of these Kier theories, but we have so many different ones in terms of how they're going to achieve bringing him back. But no, this is an interesting one that maybe they're prepping James himself to be the vessel.
It just makes me think about the way that you describe them, right? When you describe James and the way that he speaks, he seems like he's having trouble even speaking. He's not in the best shape. So when I think of a vessel that Kier would want, that's not the vessel I want, right? I want a different vessel. Maybe Helena. We know that Helena's going to be the next CEO. So maybe Kier will end up in Helena's body.
Ooh,
Tinfoil.
man. Tinfoil. I mean, a nice young body. You're going to be the next CEO of the company, so it's perfectly prepped to kind of hand the crown over to Kier as you put him inside her body. That's an interesting one, PM. I like that. Give me more of that tinfoil. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one a lot. Yeah, they changed everything in Westworld every season. They did, and for me, it was a big miss. I just wasn't a big fan of how they just kept constantly changing what this show was. I love season 1. I thought the first season of Westworld was so good. It had such a great cast, such an intriguing storyline, had that mystery aspect to it that you weren't quite sure what is at the middle of this maze that Ed Harris character is looking for. It just had everything going for it in season 1, I feel. And then when Westworld took that turn into season 2, it really changed the show for the worst, in my opinion. I love season 1, but I could not get into the rest of the seasons after that, personally. But who knows? But no, this is another good one. Again, could James potentially being prepped to be the new Kier Egan, maybe. And you also bring up, you might see a full-on revolt from Mr. Milkshake. And I like this as well. This is also, I also have a similar idea that's going to be in my video that I'm dropping tomorrow morning before the finale. I have one more prediction video that I'm working on right now, and it will be uploaded tomorrow morning. So that'll be probably the last video that I put up before the season finale gets here. So definitely keep an eye out for that tomorrow. But I have a similar idea in terms of where I think Milkshake might be going in this finale, especially based on that little preview that we did get of Milkshake looking like he's kind of frustratingly taking off his tie, walking down the severed floor. Few tinfoil ideas as to what that might be, as to what he might be doing there. That will be in the video as well. But yeah, who knows? I mean, is Milkshake on his way to kind of revolting against Lumon? I mean, we did see in episode 9, at the very least, he's finally standing up for himself now. Lumon used to walk all over him, and he kind of used to just take it. But here, for the first time, we see Milkshake stepping up to Drummond too, which is one of the more imposing and one of the more intimidating figures of Lumon. But Milkshake did not back down in the slightest. He steps right up to Drummond and he tells him, no, screw you, eat shit, essentially, devour feculence, which is just so, I still cannot wait for the opportunity I have to use devour feculence in an actual sentence in the real world. I cannot wait for that opportunity to arise. It probably never will, but I can hope, I guess. But no, I mean, yeah, you see Milkshake finally standing up for himself for the first time ever. And was that the start of something more? Was that him just being frustrated in the moment and was tired of taking all of this Lumon shit from all of these suits? Or was that the start of Milkshake kind of waking up? Is he starting to maybe start to realize that Lumon is not the team he should be playing for? I don't know. I don't know if it was a one-time thing or if this was him kind of starting to change, I guess. You think there's a possibility we're going to see some more of Milkshake kind of sticking up and standing up to Lumon?
Yes, of course. I mean, the way that he's taking off his tie, the Sevies are saying it in the chat.
Yeah.
Like it's that like I'm done with this.
I'm
right?
done
If
with
you've
this
ever
kind of
worked
thing.
in an office
Yes.
and you see somebody doing that, you're like, oh, either he's gonna quit or he got fired. You just know, like the way that he's taking off his tie, right? And it makes me think this is a perfect question for the chat that knows all, the Sevies. When we were talking about the body, I noticed that the Sevies were giving different options for the body that Kier would be put in. So Sevies, if Kier needs a new body, whose body is he gonna use? I saw a lot of people saying he's gonna be put into Gemma's, some people saying the goats. So whose body do you think that Kier would be put in if that is the whole end game?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a few different options, aren't there? I mean, yes, you have the James option, you have the Helena option, you have the Gemma option as well. Gemma kind of almost seems like the likely one, you know, considering everything they're putting her through, considering how vital she is to Cold Harbor, how vital Mark is to it. I mean, I guess if it were Gemma, I could kind of see that, considering the importance around Gemma. So I could see her maybe being the vessel, maybe. Who knows? Could be Gemma, maybe. Could be Gemma. Maybe Mark's. Could be Mark's body. You got a few people saying Mark as well. Mark from Starry and Mark from Cassie as well. I mean, maybe Mark definitely seems to be just as tied to Cold Harbor as Gemma is. It seems like they're very convinced that Mark is the only one that can finish Cold Harbor. And just because he's on this end of the computer and not that end that Gemma's on doesn't necessarily mean he's safe either. So no, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one, that it could be Mark as well. Yeah. Very interesting. Final scene of the season, Lumon resets Mark. He wakes up on the table with no clue where he is. The door opens and a heavily pregnant Helly walks in, also reset, and starts explaining Severance. Ooh, interesting, Robert. That's an interesting cliffhanger of a finale right there, my friend. Wow. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? We got another one for Mark. Milkshake, there is already a portrait made. You bring up a good point. They do have the kind of, maybe, maybe, I don't know, fuck, maybe. Milkshake is going to beat Dylan's ass for all his slights and dropping the key card on his desk. Yes, Xavier, love that so much. Maybe he is.
Hit him back for the bite. Right?
And the bite.
Are we forgetting that Dylan bit Milkshake? He never got him back for that. So
That's right. He never got him back for the
get him
bite.
back for the biting.
I like that. I like that. I like where you guys' heads at. I like it. I like it. Yeah, I know. Imagine that, a full preggo heli walking in. Oh my God. And we talked a little bit about that when we were at that episode. We brought that up a few times during the streams where, is Severance going to go that far? Like, are they going to go that far as to make Helly pregnant from this Ortbo kind of tryst, or maybe even the one between her and Mark themselves? We now know that her and Mark have, slept with each other twice, whether it was once as Helena and once as Helly. So yeah, I mean, you always wonder, like, is Severance going to go that far? Are they going to go as far as to make Helly pregnant? I don't know. I kind of hope they don't, to be honest, but they very well could. They very well could.
The Sevis want a baby. Ever since we saw that scene, the Sevis have been asking for a baby. They're like, there's going to be a baby Kier. We see babies in the intro, right? We didn't have that season 1, but season 2, we get a new intro and we see little babies in suits. So maybe, and that's so tinfoil, right?
Yeah, super tinfoil.
A baby Kier through way of Helena, who happens to be a family member of his. And so that in itself is very interesting, very confusing. But we know that the Eagans do things like that, right? They reproduce with each other, so that would make sense. And the Sevis want a baby, and I think that's a great question for them. Is there going to be a baby or no baby?
Yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, what do you guys think, chat? Do you think there's a possibility? Will we find out that Helly got pregnant during one of these sessions that she has with Mark, one of these wellness sessions, very wellness sessions, as it were? Yeah, I don't know. Could we potentially see Helly or Helena start to find out that they are indeed pregnant? Are they going to go that route? I don't know. Baby Kier is on the way. No, please, no pregnancy. I'm kind of with you, Joan. I kind of hope they don't go there, but who knows? Who knows? The Kier baby looked like a baby goat. Yeah, if you're talking about the Kier baby in the intro sequence, it does have that kind of goat-esque vibe to it with the hair, the kind of beard. It's almost like it's the oldest version of Kier as a baby, kind of. So I could see it having that goat vibe maybe a little bit. Yeah, Kiers are like the Targaryens. Yeah, the Eagans are very much like the Targaryens. Definitely, they are the modern day corporate America version of the Targaryens. And I mean, I even brought that up in one of my recent videos where you can really see, like, they really are. Whether it's the close kind of this dynasty kind of feeling that they have built up around them, the ancestral tendency kind of ways, but they do have some modern day corporate America Targaryen kind of vibes to them, in a sense, for sure. Their babies are in the intro. Come on now. I mean, there is babies in the intro. That has a lot of people have pointed that out. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe maybe those wellness sessions were effing tense, effing intense. Maybe, who knows? We know it happens in the Orpo at the very least. They've been dropping so many hints of a pregnancy. I mean, there are a lot of people seem to think it is coming. There are a lot of people that think Helly is going to get pregnant, and there has been a lot of hints of babies and stuff. So who knows? Maybe they will. I do think James is mad at Helly because she's pregnant. I think the elevator detected it. Ooh, interesting, Lacey. That's an interesting one, that maybe the elevator is detecting another life going inside of her. If the elevator is kind of scanning them as they're crossing over from outie to innie, could it detect another heartbeat, maybe another life form inside of her? Maybe that's a possibility. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I always, yeah.
Because he said, my Helly, you tricked me. Maybe that was the trick. You tricked me because they snuck away and she created that tent and she had a wellness session, as Jeremy calls it, with Mark, right? That is the trick. Because I was thinking, what is the trick, right? And they tricked him. So I think potentially, maybe not the first time, right? They knew that Helena did not in fact conceive, but maybe the second time he knows that there is a baby and it had to be Helly, not Helena, who did it. So my Helly, you tricked me, having wellness sessions in tents.
Eesh. Eesh. Yeah, maybe we are going to have a baby coming faster than we thought. Again, I hope they weren't going to go the pregnant Helena route, but as you guys mentioned, there is some interesting signs that pointing to that could potentially be a possibility. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to tell. It is hard to tell where they're going to go with that. And could that be something they say for season 3? Because, yeah, as Irene brings up, she's pregnant. It is kind of super early still. It probably wouldn't be a heartbeat yet. So, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with Severance. They're never fully kind of clear how much time passes in between episodes. So it's hard to know that to a full extent exactly how long it's been since the Orbo happened, where it's hard to know if it's only been days or if it's already been weeks. So it could potentially already be long enough where a heartbeat could be detected depending on how much time has passed. And that's one thing Severance has always been very cagey on, in terms of they're not quite clear on how much time is passing in between episodes every once in a while. But who knows? But if it is not enough time has passed, could that be something that they say for season 3, maybe a season 3 kind of storyline where they dive into a pregnancy then? That could definitely be a possibility too, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff, guys. Sevies are coming up with some awesome tinfoil. OMG, baby goat. Maybe it is animal sacrifice, and that's why they are rating, and that's why their rating was higher. The graphic violence is for sacrifice. And yes, PM, I'm so worried that this is going to be the case, but yes, you have been bringing that up, that maybe there is a potential possibility that this V for violence is coming because these poor goats are going to get hurt, and we're going to see it happen. I hope that's not the case, but you may be right. These goats might be in for a rough road.
I had to put it in there because I know you hate talking about the baby goat and the inevitable that will happen with the baby goats.
Inevitable.
We just know, I mean, what could the baby goats be for, Sevis?
Yeah.
Do you guys have any idea that makes sense that is not a violent one?
Yeah.
What are those baby goats for? It's not for petting, I don't think. I have seen some of the Sevis saying like wellness goats, maybe goat yoga or petting the goats, right?
Yeah.
I think it's something negative. What do you guys think the goats are for?
Eesh. Yeah, what do you think the goats are for, guys? What do you guys think? Do you have any theories surrounding these goats? Anything that these goats might be used for? And Brisket and Ribs asked, which temper was represented by the goat's head? That was malice. The goat head that is depicted is the malice temper of the 4. So you have malice, dread, woe, and frolic. And the goat head is the malice one. But yeah, man. I don't know what's up with these goats. The goats are for cloning, any number of weird company experiments. And I tend to think that that's probably what it is. Internet phase, I think you're probably right. It does seem like they are being used for some kind of experiment, some kind of animal testing. And while I hope that's not the case, I mean, why else would you have these goats there? And again, in season 1, when we first are introduced to these goats, we see Mark and Helly discover the goat room. Not the big goat room, just the smaller one in the beginning. And they open the door and they see this one guy sitting there feeding all of these goats. He's got all these goats around him and he's feeding this one goat. And he immediately gets super scared. He immediately gets super defensive. It says, no, it's not time yet. It's not time yet. She's not old enough, or something along those lines. Like, you can see the fear. You can see the dread in this goat person's face, where he's so afraid that these goats are about to get taken from him. And that does lead me to believe that this goat person knows what's going to happen to this goat when it gets taken from him. And he knows it is not going to be good. So yeah, maybe these goats are in for a rough road. Maybe. I don't know. They're involved in healthcare and medicine. Yeah, maybe. They're trying to kill Audi Gemma, then put Helena's consciousness in Gemma, yielding a vessel that contains all of the former CEOs in Gemma's multi-split brain. Ooh, interesting, James. Interesting. Now, I mean, could that potentially explain why they have severed Gemma so many different times? We know that there are so many different personalities of Gemma in there. Like, she's been severed multiple times over and over and over again for all of these different rooms. And yeah, could that potentially be in preparation to stick one of the CEOs of Lumen in each one of these personalities? That way you are kind of bringing back this hive mind of these CEOs, yet they can each have control at the wheel, for lack of a better term, where you can switch from one to the other. That's an interesting one, James. It's a very interesting one. I think that's what do you think about that, PM? Bringing it, I mean, it would. I like the way that it fits with how many times Gemma has been severed, with the multiple different personalities inside of her, just slipping a different version of an Egan in each one of these personalities. That's nutty.
I love it, James
Yeah.
Buckley. I think you might be onto something. It makes a lot of sense. Why else would you need somebody to be split into so many forms if
Yeah.
all you're doing is transferring one consciousness? What is the point of all of this, right?
Mhm.
I like it. I think that might not even be tinfoil. You might just actually be right on. I think that there's a lot of evidence for that. And that would be a revolving. If you have all of these different personalities, the board,
Yeah.
that would be a revolving of who is in charge at any specific time.
Yeah. Yeah, it would. It would fit a few different things. Again, it's as far as tinfoil goes, that's some good tinfoil, James. Some good tinfoil, I must say. Interesting stuff. I think James knows that Helena used the Glasgow override on herself and has been helly outside of work. Ooh, that's interesting. That maybe he knows that she's been kind of abusing this technology. She's been abusing this kind of this Glasgow override for herself, and has been helly outside of work. That's interesting, Xavier. That's very interesting. And if that's so, is that something that James Egan could potentially be angry about if he does find that out? Maybe, yeah, maybe. That's an interesting one. I like that. Brecken says, I think it's negative because the worker that was in the small room with baby goats seemed so upset and worried when Mark and Helena showed up, saying that they're not ready yet. And that's what made me super worried as well. It's like this guy looks so scared. He looked super scared, like he knew exactly what was going to happen to this goat and it wasn't going to be good. And he did not want to give the goat up yet. So that does leave me to be a little bit worried about what's going to happen to these goats, for sure. For sure. Good stuff. Do goats get sacrificed, though? Isn't that usually lambs? Well, I mean, really, almost any kind of animal can get sacrificed. When it comes to different pagan rituals and different pagan mythology, goats were sacrificed all the time in Norse mythology. Like, yeah, it can definitely be a goat. It does not just need to be a lamb. It can really be any animal. Chickens, all kinds of animals have been used for sacrificial rituals since the dawn of time. It's not just lamb. So yeah, it could easily be goat sacrifice too, for sure. For sure. James, I thought more of a possibility until we learned that Severance is basically brand new. Well, that's the thing. I mean, Severance it's kind of new, but not brand new, I would say. Like, we know the Severance program has been available to the public for 12 years already 12 years. And we know Cobel has probably been working on it for many, many more years, even before it was available to the public. Technology like this takes a very long time to develop. A lot of R&D goes into it. A lot of trials go into it before you even dream of rolling this thing out into the public. When you roll it out to the public, you need to make sure it is 100% safe. So at that point, they've probably already been testing it over and over for years up until that point. So there's a good possibility that the Severance technology could be 20 years old, maybe even older by now, depending on when Cobel first kind of created it. But at least as far as we know, it's been available to the public for already 12 years. So it's not that new. It is kind of old. Not super old, but not super new, I guess. I'd say around 12 to 20 years, probably, if I had to guess, maybe. I think the goat milk and formula is only other option new babies can have. Ooh, yeah, is that why the goats are there? To nourish these babies that they're having, or these newborns? And I don't know, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? Goats can be trained to do small tasks and have empathy and social skills like humans. Yeah, goats are surprisingly smarter than people give them credit for. That's actually very true, Scotty. You can train goats to do some pretty amazing things. I've seen it myself. Like, goats are smart. They're capable of learning some pretty crazy things. Absolutely. So yeah, who knows? Yeah, Goat Harbor. It is Goat Harbor, ladies and gentlemen. Move over, Cold Harbor. Goat Harbor is here. All right, let's see what else we got. We got Christine Sharp 6286 says, I think the insertion and removal of brain chips violent. Ooh, now that's an interesting idea. Could that be labeled as violence in and of itself? I mean, we did see the way Cobel took out Petey's chip. It was rather violent. I mean, she did have that device and she kind of sucked the thing right out of his brain. So I could understand there maybe being a degree of violence just in the removal of the chip if it's the way that Cobel removed Petey's. It was her yanking it right out of his brain, essentially. So no, maybe. Could that potentially be it? I don't know. I tend to think it's going to be something a little bit more than that, especially considering we saw in episode 8 or 7 when Regabi was flooding Mark's chip. You know, she cuts Mark's freaking skull wide open. We see this giant hole in his skull. And even that episode was not rated V for violence. So when I see it rated in this finale, I tend to think it's going to be actual violence. But who knows? I mean, it could be something like that, maybe. Who knows? Outies can be innies and innies outies anywhere. The woods, the homes, the trains, the cabins, and the elevators and stairwells and portals. Don't trust Cobel, Devin, or Ricken. I think Helena, not Helly, is at work when Daddy comes in. And I have heard some other people mentioning that as well, that they think that might have been Helena and not Helly. I don't think it's Helena. I definitely think it's Helly. I mean, you see the reaction. Helly's like, what the hell, when she turns around. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he thinks it's Helena, and whether or not how much Drummond actually told James about the Orpo, because we do hear Drummond at one point say, we've kept some things from your father to avoid him the embarrassment. Could they maybe not have told him as much as we thought? Could James be under the impression that this is still Helena as Helly on the severed floor, when really now it is Helly, but he's still thinking it's Helena maybe? But I don't think it is Helena, though. I do think it is Helly on the severed floor. But what about you, PM? When you see that scene at the end of episode 9, do you think there's a possibility that maybe this is really Helena and not Helly? Or do you think there's a possibility he maybe still thinks it's Helena? What do you think's going on there?
I mean, I think it could be. We have been wrong, or at least I
Very
have
true.
been wrong.
Very true.
All of the Sevis tried to tell me that that was Helena and not Helly. And I insisted that has to be Helly. And all along it was Helena pretending to be Helly. So for all we know, you guys could be right again. That could be
Could be.
Helena pretending, right? The only thing that makes me suspicious of the theories that say that maybe it was Helly on the outside is, how would Helly know the morning routine that Helena goes through every day? She wouldn't know. She wouldn't know to perform the way that she is expected to. We see that her father says, no, I'm just going to observe. So you have to perform in a very specific way in order for him to buy the fact that you are Helena. That's the only thing that is not matching. I do wonder, though, why he said, my Helly, you tricked me. Why is he, my Helly? That's very nice. When he calls his child Helena fetid moppet. It's like, why my Helly, you know?
Yeah, why my Helly now? Yeah. It would have been funny if he came up and said, my fetid moppet, like in like a kind way, my fetid moppet. That would have been great. What's going on with that scene? It's super weird. I mean, part of me wondered that, could there potentially be something like, is James Egan maybe seeing something in Helly that he never recognized in Helena, and maybe he wants to come to meet Helly? Like maybe he's genuinely wanting to meet Helly and see what this severed version of my daughter really looks like, what this severed version of her is actually like. Is it the same as Helena? Is she different as Helena? I don't know, but yeah, my fetid moppet would have been great. That would have been so great. Good stuff. Good stuff. But yeah, no, I don't know. What about you guys in the chat? What do you guys think when we see that scene at the end of episode 9 and we see James Egan coming up to Helly and saying, my Helly? What did you guys think there? Like, what do you think's going on there? Do you think he maybe still thinks it's Helena? Does he just want to get to know Helly? Like, what's going on with James in that scene? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? The senator's wife was Gabby at the birthing retreat and at the gala, but she was Gabrielle that other time when Devin meets her. Yeah, almost like the innie and the outie version of her had even two different names. Yeah, like and again, we're starting to see this severed technology be used for more than just employees, where we're seeing it used even in births. And again, I know Pam Jam brought it up earlier, way back earlier in the season, about the Severance technology potentially being laid out in terms of being used as, for everyday things like procedures, surgeries. You want to go under with anesthetic, or do you want the Severance program where you can use an innie or an outie for all of these kind of procedures, so you don't have to feel the pain or the agony of going through something like childbirth yourself. You have your innie do it, then you switch over. You just get to reap the rewards of having a newborn baby, and you don't have to go through any of the pain of a long, arduous labor. So I do like the idea of them potentially rolling out this technology to more of the general public for just basic everyday uses. And we do see at the end of season 1, James Egan's goal was very clear. He wants every person on the planet chipped. He wants every single person on the planet to be a child of Kier. And what better way to accomplish that than to offer this severance technology in a manner of different kind of procedures, whether it's a surgery, birth, anything really. Maybe. Who knows? Who knows? Awesome stuff. Him and Milkshake got the same dated vocabulary. I think there's something to it. Yeah, I mean, him and Milkshake definitely have similar kind of ways of speaking. At least with Milkshake, you can kind of understand what he's saying. And with James, it's more a momentous day. And he sounds like he's on his deathbed. But they do kind of have a similar vocabulary in terms of its sophistication and some of the things they say. I just thought of something. What if Bert kills Mr. Drummond when he confronts him about letting Irving go, and kills him because Mr. Drummond threatens to kill Irving? I love this one, Xavier, because again, I do have a feeling that Bert is going to have to kind of pay the piper. If Bert really did disobey Lumon and he let Irving get away, then yes, Lumon is very much going to come after Bert. There is going to be some kind of reckoning there. And yeah, I think that would be a very interesting outcome if Bert kind of ends up killing Drummond before he gets killed himself, or because he hears him threatening Irving. Yeah, I think that could be super interesting. I mean, this is Christopher Walken at the end of the day, so I'm not putting anything past him. The guy's a badass. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Man, I don't know, guys. I love it. I love the theories. Love the tinfoil. Let's keep it going. We got Helena Christine says next Friday will be a monumentous day. Yes, next Friday will be a monumentous day. I really don't know what to think. Everything is a what if. What if Milchick is doing some experiment like Cobel with Dylan? Because I still don't get why have him meet his wife. He wasn't even the main refiner. What if Helena used to be like Helly before her tempers were tempered? Haha. What if Irving didn't ride the particular train Bert sent him to? What if Mark is really a descendant of Kier? What if Cobel doesn't really help Mark? What if Regabi is working for a competitor of Lumon? I mean, you bring up a lot of very good points, and we are filled with a ton of what ifs as we head into this final episode. There's so much we don't know. There's so many different storylines that they do need to finish tying off. There's a lot of loose threads here narratively that are still hanging. So they are going to have to wrap up a lot. So I'm very glad that we're going to get a pretty long episode with it being 76 minutes in runtime. I think they're going to need every single second of that screen time to fully wrap all of these storylines up, because as you mentioned, a lot of stuff is still very much up in the air. There are a ton of storylines that still need to get resolved. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. And I like that at the ending part. Part of me always wondered if Regabi was working for some kind of rebellion. Maybe she's already working for Whole Mind or something like that. But do you think that's a possibility as well, chat and PM? Do you think maybe Regabi could be working for a competitor company and they're trying to crack reintegration to have something to offer that Lumon doesn't with this technology?
I like it. I like it because it brings us back to capitalism and what we have seen in the show. What we see in the show is a corporate cult, and you cannot have corporation without capitalism. And the way that they have structured the town, we see the water tower. Even the water tower has their logo. So they have completely taken over that town, if not the world. We don't know what the outside world looks like. So potentially, I could definitely see that there is a competitor. As with anything, you create something, there will be somebody that wants to make it better or make a version of that. So I like that. It makes a lot of sense. Now, Regabi, the Sevis have always said in the chat, we have a big portion of the Sevis that say that they don't trust her. Now, when I see your guys' comments, it's just you don't trust her demeanor or the way that she was speaking to Mark because she was so focused on the hallway and not really on his health. And I tend to agree with you guys. I don't know what it is about Regabi, but I don't fully trust her. There's something going on there. The way that she was doing the operations on Mark, Devin was right. She wasn't doing it with that, like conscientious of if he was going to live or die.
Yeah.
She kind of just seemed like she had a one track mind and could care less for Mark.
She did kind of have a little bit of a cavalier attitude towards it. It almost like it was almost like this is a means to an end and not because I want to help Mark. So I definitely kind of understand that vibe. And you're totally right. A lot of people have been very suspicious of Regabi from the very beginning. Why is she doing this? Why is she trying to crack reintegration? Like, she can't just be doing this out of the kindness of her own heart. I mean, nobody does that. At least not many people anyway. There's not many just altruistic people like that in the world that would risk something this risky, because Regabi knows the risk that she is undergoing by going against Lumen. And we're at the point now where Lumen actively knows who Regabi is. I mean, she used to work for Lumen, so there must have been some kind of falling out there. And after you have a falling out with a company like Lumen, you'd think you'd want to lay as low as possible and not create any attention to yourself. But here Regabi is going as far as to trying to crack something that even Lumen doesn't know how to do with reintegration. So her working for, a rival company, a competitive company, I think that could very well be just as likely as her working for some kind of rebellion, at least. I mean, it could easily be one or the other, where she's, again, if this other competitor has cracked the kind of technology that is Severance, but yet they're able to go one step further and they're able to offer a reverse of that procedure, which Lumen can't do. Lumen is very clear up until the point when someone gets severed, you're severed for life. I mean, when you're getting severed, you know that this is a life-altering change. But if another company can offer you the severance thing with a reversal option, that becomes much more appealing. And then that also becomes much more viable of a product to roll out to the general public as well. Because if you're the general public and you want to use this technology for like one operation, then you want it gone, then yes, that would be a way better choice, getting severed and knowing you can reverse the situation if you need to, as opposed to going to Lumen, knowing that if you get severed, you're severed for life. So I could totally see her working for some kind of competitor, a different rival company, another tech company, another conglomerate maybe, and they're trying to offer something better than Lumen even has. I could totally see that. It's interesting. I
really like that.
Yeah.
I really like that. The idea that it doesn't have to be permanent. Because if you put it that way, even I would get severed. If it's
Right?
not a permanent thing, I would think like, what is it that I don't want to do? And I would get severed. You could
Yeah.
reverse it. If there is a reversal, then I think a lot more people would be on board. So I love that.
Yes. And that's the thing. I think that would make it much more appealing to the general public. I think that's one of the reasons why Severance is so widely opposed by so many people. It's this life-altering situation that comes with all of these ramifications. But if it's one of those things where you can do it and then reverse the process, I don't know. I mean, maybe does that potentially become more of an appealing option to the public, where people who normally wouldn't get severed might actually consider it now if they know there is a reversal process? I mean, like you said, I myself would definitely at least consider it a little bit more if I knew I could undo it, as opposed to this being a permanent freaking fix for the rest of my life. So, no, that's interesting. That's interesting. If maybe Regabi is trying to crack reintegration because she's trying to ultimately, weave that into their IP, into their version of the Severance program, where they call it something different, alter the technology ever so slightly so they can avoid copyright and infringement, and offer their own package. Very doable if you can crack reintegration. So that's interesting. But yeah, I also like what Quan Solar says as well. I think Regabi is solo. She has no budget. I love that as well, Quan. That is, you bring up a very good point. Every time we see Regabi using any of her equipment, she's banging on it to get it working. It's set up in a basement in Mark's house. Like she has no budget behind her whatsoever. So you do bring up a good point, Quan.
It's like in a big plastic tub.
Man, anytime you walk into a serious medical procedure, an invasive brain surgery procedure, and you see the surgeon that's about to work on you banging on the equipment to get it work, that's not going to fill me with confidence, personally. So you bring up a very good point, Quan. Very good point indeed. She might have no budget at all. No budget at all. Yeah, the equipment is faulty and not a competitor worthy, in my opinion. She's doing it for personal reasons to save people, and maybe she is. I mean, like again, you bring up a valid point about the budget. She's got no budget. Yeah, maybe she's just doing this to offer a service to people that she feels have been wronged by Lumen, that have been manipulated and not coerced, but manipulated into this severance procedure by Lumen. That's very possible. Severance will be like a vasectomy with the reversal guaranteed. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I think that's requiring a do it, Seth.
Yes! Do it, Seth!
Very good.
Marshmallows are for team players, Dylan. They don't just hand them out.
Love it. Oh, love it. Absolutely awesome stuff tonight, guys. You guys are killing it. All right, let's get through these last few. We got the tie that whines says, I think there's going to be a giant brain swap. Cobel is going to take over Helly's brain / body. Helly's going to take over Gemma's brain, and Gemma will be in Cobel's body. Everyone else will be wiped, and the whole show will start over at the beginning. I just confused myself. Well, you confused me a little bit there, too. I got to go back and reread. At this point, I suppose it's as plausible as anything else we've heard this evening. And that's what's so fun about Severance. You never know what is coming around the corner. But who knows? Giant brain swaps, Cobel going into Gemma's body or Helly's body. Who knows what's going to happen at this point? Who knows? But no, that's some tinfoil right there. That is the tinfoil on top of the tinfoil. So good stuff. Very good stuff. Father Daniel says, on rewatch, I discovered Cold Harbor and every other door Gemma uses during her tests are all named after medical facilities around the world. I'm also starting to think that James Egan has way more children than just Helena. I think you're right there as well, Father Daniel. And I think episode 9 definitely kind of all but confirmed that for us when we see Cobel bringing Devon into the birthing cabins under the pretense that this is one of James Egan's mistresses or something. And it seemed like it was a regular occurrence kind of thing, or at least regular enough where the cabins have their own secret handshake in order to let these people in whenever there's nothing scheduled. So I definitely think James Egan has many more children out there around the world than just Helena. Helena is definitely not his only child. I think that episode 9 definitely kind of all but confirms that. Drummond referred to James as his father. The doctor they have at the birthing clinic plus Cobel always says we are all Kier's children, and I believe we're going to find out that could be the case. Yeah, there was a little bit of a conversation going on earlier in the season that people were wondering if Drummond and Helena were brother and sister, because yes, we do see right when after Helena gets exposed by Irving in episode 4 in the Yorpo, we see the very next episode. She doesn't want to go back to the severed floor, but we see her and Drummond talking, and she says, Father okayed this. And we hear Drummond respond with, "Father encouraged this." So Drummond does call him father. Now, is that because it's his father, or is that just because it's more of that kind of cult religious-like mentality where the current CEO tends to be the leader of the church, the father, as it were? I don't know. Is it an actual father, or is it more of a father figure, I guess is the question. But what about you, PM, and what about you guys in the chat? Do you think there's a possibility that Drummond could be a secret Egan, that maybe him and Helena really are brother and sister? Or do you think that's just Drummond calling him father because he's a father-like figure?
I mean, now that we know that there is a secret code for the birthing cabin, and the way that she said it's one of James Egan's, I mean, it's obvious. He's having children with other women, right? That he's not recognizing, because as we know, he only has Helena as the child that he recognizes and the next CEO. So I think that that's right on point, Father Daniel, and you would know, you're a father, all about fathering. I think that not only can Drummond be an Egan, but potentially Cobel. We've talked about how strange it was that they couldn't open the mother's room,
Yeah.
and that they have never they never brought up her father. So we might be looking at Cobel being an Egan, Drummond being an Egan. A lot of people say Mark is an Egan. That's tinfoil, so it perfectly fits with today. So we might be looking at everybody being an Egan.
Maybe.
Every
I
single
mean,
one.
we're
Every
looking
single
at
one of the characters.
looking at all of these just secret Egans, and that does kind of bring it, make you think a little bit more about the House Targaryen kind of influence and connection there, because that's a huge part of Game of Thrones, where everybody, the whole fandom, there were all these theories of all of these characters being secret Targaryens, whether it was Jon Snow, Tyrion, Jaime, Cersei. All of these characters were really secret Targaryens. And yeah, maybe we're seeing something similar here, where all of these characters, or a lot of these characters, are perceived to maybe be secret Egans. I know a lot of people seem to think Mark might be a secret Egan. A lot of people think Drummond might be an Egan. And as you mentioned, Cobel. There's definitely a possibility that even Cobel could be an Egan. And yeah, that James can still Uno with women. I think maybe. I mean, I know he looks super old. I know James Egan looks like he's super old, but he's only in his mid 60s, I believe. I believe he was born in 1960. So if it is 2022, he'd be around 62 years old right about now. So while he looks a lot older than that, he could technically still be young enough to Uno with women, as you put it, Pam Jam. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, Drummond could be a bastard Egan, where maybe James is his father, but he has a different mother than Helena. That could potentially be a possibility as well. A lot of people were bringing up this all season too, that Drummond looks a lot like Ricken, and I think they could be Egans. And while I kind of understand the Drummond and Ricken thing, I at least understand why people are making that correlation. I don't think they look enough alike to be that close, but again, there's some similarities there. So I do at least understand where those theories come from. But yeah, Drummond frolic too much. That's why he's not CEO. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? That makes me think, Sevis, why are we not asking the obvious question? So we know who Elena's father is, and we see her morning routine. We know that they live together in the mansion. Where is her mother?
Yes.
Why wouldn't she add a breakfast? Who is her mother? She never speaks about her mother.
And is it Cobel?
We also didn't see her in the gala.
Yes.
So who is this mother? Who is Elena's mother? Where is she?
I get the sense that the mother is either dead or not in the picture anymore. Because like you said, even at the gala, every time we see James Egan, whether it's at one of these functions, at Lumen, he's always by himself. He's never with a wife figure. So yeah, I mean, who is Helena's mother at the end of the day? And could it be Cobel herself? I mean, a lot of people were thinking that maybe Cobel isn't James' daughter. That Cobel was James' secret lover. And while I hope that's not the case, I mean, I know there was at least a few people that were thinking that they might have been secret lovers instead of father and daughter, which could, I mean, again, I think father and daughter is a little more likely given their age difference, but then again, they're not crazy different in age either, only around 15 years or so apart. So yeah, I don't know. Who is Helena's mother? How come we haven't learned anything about Helena's mother? And how come we haven't learned anything about Cobel's father at the same point as well? I don't know. Yeah, Cobel is her mother, but doesn't remember since she was severed. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, imagine if Cobel was like secretly severed and she never knew about it. I mean, being the person who created this technology, only to have it used against you like that would be very, very tragic for someone like Cobel, to have this thing just stolen from you, only to be manipulated with it later on in life. That could be very, very devastating for her, for sure. And we got some other people who think, yeah, Cobel is Helena's mom. Harmony might be Helena's mom. And maybe. James, you are the father. Yeah, I don't know. And Joel says there's just no way to continue the story after this finale. I mean, I guess it depends on what we get. I mean, it's an interesting idea. Like, how much are they going to give us in this finale? How far are they going to go? How much are they going to answer? And depending on that, that could tell us where the story is going to go in season 3. But yeah, if they don't leave a lot of room to maneuver, that could be very interesting. But I imagine they will. I get the feeling that the Severance crew, I do believe I've heard them like briefly mention that they're planning around 4 seasons in total. So if they're planning around 4 seasons, I have to imagine they know where the story is going in order to keep it sustaining itself for 4 seasons. I don't think they're going to kind of blow their whole load on the season 2 finale. At least I hope not. But yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll see how much we get in the finale. How much are they really going to reveal is the question. I don't know. And certainly got a lot of threads. There's still so many storylines and so many threads that they need to tie together. Starry says, okay, yeah, I think Natalie could be an Egan. She's the only person who can meet with the board and we never hear them. Yeah, well, how come Natalie is the only one that seems to have access to this mysterious board? What is it about Natalie that has given James Egan so much confidence in her to put her in this very serious and precarious position where she's the only between the board and whoever the board's talking to at any given time? And could that maybe mean that Natalie herself is Egan or half Egan? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. What do you think about that? Do you think there's a possibility Natalie could be James' secret daughter or a secret Egan? Maybe that's why he trusts her so much with this board connection.
I think at this point, it's like the Sevi say. Anybody could be James' child.
Really?
At this point, right? And also, she has those beautiful blue eyes, right? If I'm remembering correctly, the Sevis are talking about who has blue eyes. I believe Natalie has those beautiful blue eyes, so potentially she could also be an Egan. At this point, I could be an Egan.
You could. At this point, I could be an Egan for all I know. Like, maybe I don't even know. Maybe we didn't even know that we're Egans this whole time. How just devastating would that be? That'd be tragic. I don't want to be an Egan. And yeah, James didn't age well with all of his money. He didn't, Lacey. And that's what's so funny about James and his voice, where he sounds like a decrepit old man, like he's on his deathbed the whole monumentous day. Like, he sounds like he's ready to keel over, this guy. Yeah, he did not age well, especially if he's only in his 60s. He did not age well at all. At all. Natalie also received the portrait that Milkshake did. She did. We do hear Natalie talk about how she received the same gift probably a long time before Milkshake even received it. And that's why Milkshake was kind of seeking her out for some kind of familiarity, some kind of comfort to see, how did you feel when you were giving this gift, quote unquote? How did it make you feel? And I think, Milkshake was looking for an ally in Natalie, but Natalie's been at Lumen for a while. She knows there's somebody always looking. She knows she can't just let her guard down and give Milkshake what she wants. So she never kind of bites. She never takes the olive branch, as it were, even though I imagine there's probably a part of her that really wanted to. But yeah, I don't know. Great stuff. Good stuff, Father Daniel. Awesome stuff. We got Monk of Magnesa. What is up, Monk? The board is a computer. Its full name is Motherboard. And here we go. We got another theory about the board potentially really being a computer or an AI, or in this case, a motherboard, as it were. I mean, I suppose it would be kind of fitting with just the wordplay in and of itself. The board, motherboard. I can see it. I can see why people might think that. But yeah, we've gotten a lot of these theories tonight, and the fandom has really been split on this topic ever since the beginning of the series, in terms of some fans thinking the board is made up of people, and some people think the board is tech-based, AI-based, a motherboard, artificial intelligence, some kind of, the necromancer, whatever it is. Maybe it is technology. I don't know. I tend to lean a little bit more towards I'm hoping it's people, but it could be a motherboard. It could very well be a motherboard. Awesome stuff. We got Wannabe 4795. Cold Harbor would seem to be when a personality has been totally extinguished. Tabula rasa. Yes, tabula rasa. That's going back to the lost days. Then we can replace a person's chip with another upload and another or upload current with different consciousness, invaluable tech to those sickos, in my humble opinion. That would be very much invaluable tech. If Lumen has figured out a way to map the human consciousness, which I get the feeling I wouldn't be surprised if they did. We do see that one kind of key phrase next to the Glasgow block, next to the overtime contingency. We also see one that is labeled branch transference. And many people, myself included, have also wondered, could branch transference potentially be referring to that, a transfer of a consciousness from one kind of chip to another kind of thing? And could this be what's happening with Gemma, where we're seeing Cold Harbor is going to be completed? We will see all of Gemma's personas, all of her personalities get erased, essentially. And that's something I've been worried about from the very beginning of the season. I always thought it would be a very kind of bittersweet ending if we got to a point where Mark did successfully rescue Gemma, only to realize that Gemma was gone forever and that Miss Casey was the only thing that was remaining. Or in this case, Gemma is gone forever and somebody totally new has been put inside of her body. I always thought that was an interesting possibility. And yes, seeing that Gemma, hearing from Cobel in episode 9, that once Mark completes Cold Harbor to 100%, at that point, Gemma is dead. But again, what is dead? It doesn't mean that will physically actually kill her, or is it dead more along the lines of all of the Gemma personas will be gone forever? She will essentially be dead and only Miss Casey will be left alive. That it could be either or. But yes, episode 9 definitely did start to give us a little bit more evidence that something like that could be the case, that finishing Cold Harbor is going to erase Gemma for good and she is going to be gone and maybe only be left with Miss Casey. Or, as you mentioned, being left as an empty vessel where they could upload any consciousness into it they want, which could also tie it back into them bringing back Kier even. So that's an interesting one.
Well, in the last episode, Cobel said it. She told us just directly, if he finished Cold Harbor, then she is dead. So, I mean, we know that much. Replace a person's chip with another one to upload. I really like it. I feel like Sevis, you guys are convincing me that this might be a computer-based program.
Maybe. It's interesting. And as you mentioned, I mean, with the added context of what we hear from Cobel in episode 9 about Gemma potentially being killed or even erased, it makes it that much more at least plausible that it could potentially be what's going on here, if nothing else. So no, that's a good one. Very good one, Wannabe. And we also got another one, part 2. Helly will fight to stay alive at all costs. Since looks like what's Gemma's as we knew her will seemingly be erased. I feel Mark will fight for her. Remember the interchangeability of the 3 women in the season intro images. Yes, and that was one of the interesting things. We see that one shot of the elevator, and the elevator door is closing, and we see it kind of rapidly switching back and forth from Gemma to Helly, from Gemma to Helly, Gemma to Helly. And yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder if that was a potential foreshadowing for something that was going to be coming later on. And I like how you started with Helly will fight to stay alive at all costs. And I do think we are going to get a little bit of a glimpse of that as well, because one of the few things we do get in the episode 10 preview is a little bit of dialogue from Helly saying exactly that. They gave us half of a life and they expect us not to fight for it. So I definitely am expecting Helly to be in fight or flight mode in this finale, and she very much will be fighting for her life and the lives of all of her other fellow MDR employees. Now, what will the context of that be? What will that look like? Still remains to be seen. But yes, it looks like Helena is very much going to be up for a fight in this finale. She's getting ready to fight for the half of life that they gave her. Just because they gave them half a life doesn't mean that they can't fight for it. And we do know that's always been Helena's kind of spirit. That's always been who she is. She's a fighter. She does not give up. She's not one to just sit around and let things happen. She takes charge of her destiny. We see her do that time and time again, whether it's small things like her not waiting for Mark to kiss him and her just grabbing Mark and kissing him and not waiting for him to make the move. Same thing we see her do in season 2, where she takes initiative once again and takes control back from the damage that Helena did, telling Mark, I don't want her memory, I want one of my own, and creating one of her own memories. Helena has always been one of these characters to fight and take charge of her own destiny. And yeah, I think we're going to see her do that in a big way in the finale.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I really like the fact that you go and decide for Mark, right? Because that is the question. Like, we go outside of tinfoil, just talking a little bit about what we're actually looking at.
Yeah.
You're right. There are 3 women in Mark's life: Helena, Helly, and Gemma.
Yeah.
Who is Mark? You can only be with one. Who is Mark going to fight for? Because if we're looking at them potentially saving Gemma, then you're making that choice. If you save Gemma, then that's the person that I'm guessing you're going to stay with, right? If you don't save her, then I'm guessing you're staying with Helly. Helly is asking any Mark to fight with her. And I think that you are right on point. It's not just fighting for their life, but it's fighting for their life together. So it makes me think, who is Mark going to choose? Like, at some point, he has to make a choice of who of the 3 women he's going to have feelings for, stay with, or fight for, right? It also makes me think, what I would like to see happen is that they all don't like him anymore. Right? I don't like these 3 women fighting over just one Mark. I would like them all to be like, you know what, Mark? It's done. It's done, Mark. No more, no more wellness sessions. It's done.
Yeah, I mean, it is such an interesting aspect in terms of everything that's going on there, and I like this. And someone was just saying, like, they're loving all this in tinfoil heaven, and I totally am in tinfoil heaven myself too right now. Like, it's fun to just kind of throw on the tinfoil every once in a while, and I get it. Whenever we're kind of more seriously theory crafting, you want it to be based a little bit more on evidence you're actually seeing in the show. But it's fun to kind of just go into these kind of crazy realms every once in a while and throw on that tinfoil hat, especially on a show like Severance, where even the most tinfoil of tinfoil could eventually turn around to end up being true, because there's just still so much we don't know. But yeah, this has been these have been fun. These have been super fun. I'm loving the tinfoil this evening. Yeah, I don't know. Good stuff, guys. Very good stuff. Very good stuff indeed. All right, let's see. I think we got a few left, and we're almost at the end. I think we got the final 3. Here we go. Lisi. We got a good one from Lisi. Okay, I got new theories on Cobel. I've been rewatching season 1. Grainer knew Cobel wanted reintegration to be possible. When he gives Petey's chip back, he says we should celebrate. Devin has been trying to find Mark a new girlfriend, starting with the midwife, who every time she is with him runs into people who hate Lumon, which makes Mark start to question where he works. When Cobel meets Mark at the end of episode 9, she gives him a half-hearted attempt at saying they're allies now. Very true. And now in episode 10, she's saying there will be no fairy tale ending for you. I believe she's been trying to reintegrate Mark for a minute now. I think she's working with Regabi, and Grainer knew too much. He kept asking personal questions. You didn't tell the board yet. We saved info so you can keep Petey's chip. There's a lot in the early combos between them. Now, this is an interesting aspect that maybe Cobel was in on Grainer getting killed. That, yes, I mean, he was kind of right there. It did seem like there was this weird kind of relationship between Cobel and Grainer, almost like they were intimate, maybe like they were sleeping together, even with him asking her that. We should celebrate. He's got this weird smile on when he's talking to her. You get the sense that there's something there between them. But yes, if Grainer is starting to become a little bit too pushy, if he's starting to learn a little bit too much, and Cobel is starting to get nervous that he knows too much, and yeah, she's secretly working with Regabi this whole time, could she have sent him there to his doom, knowing that Regabi would take him out? That's a very interesting one, Lisi. That's a very interesting one.
Mm-hmm. I really like it, Lisi. I like it because it also brings full circle the idea that we could redeem Cobel. We have seen her do like horrible things, right? But if she is in fact working with Regabi and working on the inside, trying to get as close as she can to the technology so that she can help Mark and Gemma, then perhaps she could be redeemed. So I totally like it. And I have always been against the relationship between her and Grainer since we met Hampton. I'm just totally team Cobel and Hampton. So I'm so glad that Grainer is gone.
Yeah, me too. I am definitely more pro Hampton. I mean, the guy is just, he was great. He was so great. That one line at the end of episode 8 alone, contain these tempers, assholes. Love that guy. I'm never going to not love that guy. So I'm definitely more team him and Cobel over Grainer and Cobel. Definitely any day of the week. But yeah, no, this is a good one. Yeah, Lisa, you are brilliant. Oh, snap. This was a good one. I think this is a really good one because it's not only an intriguing theory, but it's a very intriguing theory that also is backed up with real evidence that's inside the show. So this isn't really too tinfoil-y at all. This is just like a really good theory. So no, this is a good one, Lisa. I like this one a lot. Yeah, Cobel Hampton all day. It's got to be Cobel Hampton. Hampton was great. He was. Hampton was fucking awesome. Hampton was awesome. Awesome. Wow, yeah, great stuff. Really great stuff. I think that might be one of my favorite ones of the night. That might be. I think that's my favorite. Oh, that was the last one. Wow. Yeah, I think that might be my favorite one of the night. That one was freaking great. That was really, really good. Wow, awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. There we go. Tinfoil Wednesday has been an absolute blast. Love diving into these theories with each and every one of you. It's always an absolute blast to see where you guys are thinking these next episodes are going to go. And as I believe Starry just said in the chat a little while ago, super excited to know that at this time tomorrow, we will be actively discussing the series finale. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are less than 24 hours away from the season finale of Severance, a whopping 76 minutes long. And of course, tomorrow night, we will have our usual pregame show before the episode drops. And then I will be doing as soon as the episode is done airing, we will be doing a direct live after show tomorrow as well. So we have 2 very fun streams planned. We'll do the pregame show like we always usually do. And of course, the live after show right after we are all done watching the season finale. And I can't wait. Again, all of these great theories, all of these just phenomenal storylines and characters that we still have no idea where they're going to go, where are they going to wrap up, how much are they going to show us in season 2, what are they going to save for season 3, what is Cold Harbor, what are the ramifications of it going to really be. We have a lot to get through in this finale. A ton of stuff to get through into this finale. And we got a whopping 76 minutes to get through all of it. So I'm really glad we have an extended episode. It's nice. We're getting a nice long one with probably some good meat on the bone. And from the early reviews that are coming out, it seems like the finale is quote unquote game changing, that everything gets brought full circle. These are the words I keep hearing that are being repeated when people are talking about what the finale brings, because some people have seen the finale, and although they can't give details on it, they can talk about it in general terms. And a lot of the early reviews I'm seeing are saying exactly that. It's game changing. It brings everything full circle. It's a wild ride. So it looks like the finale is going to bring a ton of interesting stuff. And tomorrow we will be right here doing our pregame show and our after show and diving into all things Severance season 2 finale. PM and chat, are you guys ready for the season 2 finale?
No and yes.
Yes.
No, I'm not ready. And yes, I could watch it right now. And that's why I'm so excited that we have Sevi week, you guys, because tomorrow we get to talk about the finale before and after. And then on Friday, we get to talk about Innie versus Saudi. And then Saturday, we have our show. So we're going to have plenty of time to discuss how insane this is going to be. And I totally agree with Interface. He said it at the beginning of the live stream. We're all going to need therapy, group therapy after the finale, especially if it's going to be violent. So come back here for our group therapy and we'll do it together.
Indeed. Yes, we will have a massive group therapy session as we process what we have all just witnessed together. The madness, the craziness that will be this Severance Season 2 finale. Yeah, we will get through it together tomorrow right here on the channel. And as PM said, during the rest of the week as well. This isn't just Severance Day. This is Severance Week is what we are doing. We got Severance content planned for every single day of this week. Again, tomorrow is going to be the pregame and the after show. And I also have one final predictions video that I'm working on that I will get out tomorrow morning as well before the finale gets here. So definitely keep an eye out for the last prediction video we're going to do tomorrow morning. And then again, Friday, we'll be diving into Innie versus Audi. Who do you prefer? We'll go through each one of the characters and we will decide who is ultimately superior, the Innie versus the Audi. And then, of course, Saturday, our usual show as we dive deep, deep, deep into the finale. By Saturday, all of us will have had a time to watch the finale at least 2 or maybe even 3 times. You always end up catching some more things you missed the first go around. So I imagine the Saturday discussion will be even more in depth diving into the finale. But either way, we have a lot of fun Severance content planned right here on the channel over the next few days. And hopefully you guys come back and hang out with us and dive into all of this madness as we see where season 2 is going to end. But I want to thank you all so much, not only for joining us tonight, but for joining us every single time we have gone live. You guys have been so supportive of the Severance content this year, whether it's the live streams, the videos. You guys have been so, so supportive. I cannot thank each and every one of you enough. So we will continue to be here each and every week, diving into all things Severance. As long as you guys want to talk Severance, we will be here talking Severance. But until next time, get ready for that finale, ladies and gents, because it is coming faster than ever. We are way less than 24 hours away now from the season 2 finale that we are going to dive into head first right here on the channel tomorrow night. And until then, keep those tinfoil hats on, folks, and I will see you on the next one.